Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
Yeah, baby! Dan McGuire, are you here?
I am here. I'm well. My voice is back to normal. You think our theme song kind of sounds like, what's that guy on like Peanuts that played? Was it Schroeder?
That's Schroeder, right?
It was like playing a keyboard or some shit. It kind of sounds like something from Peanuts.
No. That's the Vince Guaraldi did the music for the Peanuts CBS TV series, and it's classic music. It was very jazz and feel. This feels more like a New Orleans jazz than it's supposed to what Schroeder was banging out on the keyboards while Lucy was nearby waiting to suck his dick.
Would you fuck Lucy? I think I would have.
Yeah. There's not a lot to pick from that group.
The Peppermint Patty seems like she'd want to peg us.
Yes, that was the rumor that Peppermint Patty was lesbian. There was
Peppermint
Sally.
Patty was transitioning. Not that there's anything wrong with
Not at all. Even back then. Not that in Florida they would allow you to talk about that.
Right.
So you've been good. Your voice sounds 100%. Not that it really sounded bad at any point. But
oh my God, listening like when Jim McMahon was on, I sounded like death.
No.
I thought I sounded like complete and utter shit. But at least again, we had that opportunity. Yeah. Which I'm immensely grateful for and will always be.
Oh, anytime. And we're working on getting some people during the off season that should make some of our future shows extra special. I don't want to reveal any names because we know some people out there who will try to get them before us.
Right.
Oh man. Did you listen to any of Ryan Poles' press conference today?
I did not. I was in prep for working my shift today, so I literally slept until 6 p.m. East.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I was impressed with a lot of his responses. It wasn't a lot of that Ryan Pace stuff. Yeah, he was secretive, and now whether he lied to us on a couple of times, we'll find out after the draft. But I thought he revealed a few things, and he was professional. It was a nice change of pace. Now he's just got to go out there and really nail this draft. Now you're upset about the Pringle thing, right?
Yeah, and it's not like from the moral outrage kind of thing, but like you said, the kid's in the car, you're doing donuts, driving on a suspended license. I question your intelligence. I'm not saying he can't do calculus. I'm just saying, but his decision making bothers me if he's willing to do something so stupid when he just signed a contract with a new organization. Make no mistake about it. He's with a $1 billion corporation, the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
And I am nowhere near as important, but I would be fired from both gigs had I done what he did. And I'm not saying we should cut him, like, because he did something so morally wrong. I'm not saying that, but from a decision-making side of it, I wouldn't be so upset if they told him, A, you're either cut or you're at the bottom of the depth chart. You're going to have to work your ass to pay this one off.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's that dumb off the field, can you depend on this guy on Sunday or Thursday or Monday if he's making these kind of decisions?
All right. Steven says, let's make this clear. Poles is not to blame for Pringle's decision. I don't think anybody here is blaming Poles at all. I got a 20-second soundbite of Poles responding to that question about Pringle.
I know him very well, and it's not a reflection of who he is at all. You don't want your guys in the news at all. So, yeah, at that point, it's a disappointment. But like I said, we had good conversations about it. We're in a good place, and we'll keep that internal.
Thought he handled that professionally because it should be kept internal. He should express his disappointment. So he kind of covered both sides of the aisle there. And there was more to that, but that was the gist of what he said regarding that issue. Does that appease you? Maybe appease is not the right word, but does that satisfy you a little more, Dan?
I mean, I don't expect him to say anything different as the general manager.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't expect him to come out and kick the guy in the balls and say that, he's unintelligent or whatever. You got to protect your guy.
Right.
I get that. But internally, I would hope that they told him, like, you fuck up like this again, bro, and you're gone.
Yeah. I would take that approach exactly. It's not, I would tell my players, this is not a 3 strikes and you're out kind of deal. This is a 2 strikes and you're out. This is not baseball. This is the Chicago Bears, and our tolerance for some things is 0. But our tolerance for something like this is you get a break on this one and just don't do it again, we don't know the details of how old was the kid. At least I don't know, but yeah, it's not a good look when you're doing that with the kid. Now, having said that, when I was a kid, I had a lot of cars with my Uncle Mike doing donuts and going 80 miles an hour down North Avenue in Chicago and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And that,
but it kind of feels like the Jay Williams thing. In a certain sense, you can go ride the motorcycle all you want, but not when you're with the Chicago Bulls.
Yes,
like you can do those things. Do donuts and shit, but you have a responsibility in that huge contract to fulfill, like, because you're a representative of that team everywhere. It's not that you're separate from them unless you're just the bottom of the roster guy that no one's ever heard of. Then maybe you have some anonymity. But even if he's never accomplished anything, the Bears were betting on him to be a breakout guy. So, man, and they gave you some money. Like, you owe it to them to keep your fucking head clean.
And now, apparently, he was driving a Hellcat. Do you know what that is, Dan?
I have no clue whatsoever.
But apparently, Cliff Victoria says if he was driving a Hellcat, he'd be doing the same thing, too. But the thing you brought up, Jay Williams, it's interesting that with Jay Williams, the former number 1 draft pick for the Chicago Bears, and Dan, you probably remember the year better than me, it was in his contract that he couldn't drive motorcycles. So he really fucked up. Besides killing off his NBA playing career, and then the Chicago Bulls, they forgave him and paid out, I think, the majority or all of that contract, despite the fact that they had legal grounds to say, dude, you fucked up, no money for you. But I'm being told that a Hellcat is a muscle car. So Hemi Charger Foster Covers. Is it Covers or Covers? Foster, put the pronunciation key on your name. Help me out. So I don't know. I think this is one of those things, and Nomad is in the chat, and he's like saying, "Come on, let's not make too big of a deal out of it." And Greg Gabriel said the same thing on today's show. He said, there's a guy in the NFL who allegedly may have sexually harassed dozens of women, and he's playing. Those are the issues we should.
No, Brett Favre retired.
That's right, but those are bigger issues that need our attention. Greg thought that the Brian Pringle, that's just not even worth discussion. But I do, I think unfortunately I'm pulling for Poles so much, but unfortunately he's come out of the gate with a few problems. The whole Ogunjobi thing, again, that's not his fault. It's just bad luck. The whole thing with Bates, the offensive lineman for Buffalo, again, not his fault. You could make the argument he should have offered him more than what the Bills matched. And then this issue with Pringle, it's just a string of bad luck to start off his GM career. And hopefully he'll erase that this weekend with some tremendous picks and get us feeling really good.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Tooch says, Byron Pringle, Aldo, no more bourbon for you, old man. Thanks, Tooch. All right, so I do want to play some of these sound bites because I got a lot of them, and the rest of the show we'll be talking about some draft stuff. But I want to really delve into Poles' press conference today. There were some interesting things that he shared with us that might give us a clue a little bit into what is going on with the team's thinking for the draft. In terms of his style, he was asked if he's more of an old school guy who relies more on his thought process and watching tape, or is he the type of guy who relies a lot on analytics? This is what Ryan Poles responded to.
I feel like my foundation is old scouting. That old foundation was set early in my career. A lot of that has to do with just watching a lot of tape, and understanding that sometimes you're taking a good football player. Like sometimes it's just that basic. Like, are we taking a good football player? Do I think you can use some of these tools and technologies to get too cute? Absolutely. But I think my foundation is at the end of the day, I want to take away a good football player because I've watched the tape and there's proof on film. If you get kind of funky with all of a sudden the proof is on paper, I think you're kind of playing with fire a little bit. So that's kind of that old school part. But I do like to use the numbers and the numbers on paper to confirm what I see and what we see.
I love that thinking, because a lot of times in today's sports world, baseball, basketball, football, you name it, there's the real emphasis on analytics now. And sometimes, your eyes have got to, and your gut, should lead the way with that, with evaluating players. And so I'm glad that he responded that way and didn't give us a bunch of gobbledygook about the importance of analytics.
I thought that it was a good juxtaposition between the new regime and the old regime. Not trying to kick Ryan Pace here, but he had a lot of those picks that were based on like his assumption or his hopes that this player could turn into something like projects.
Yep.
Now, again, Cohen paid off, but a lot of those didn't.
Right.
So it sounded like he said, well, Poles is saying, I want to draft someone that's already done this on tape. Not that he could do this later. Someone that's already done it.
Yeah, one of the criticisms about Ryan Pace is that he liked to draft guys who looked really good in their underwear. He was really big into physique and muscle buildup, body makeup, and so forth, which was one of the big reasons he chose Kevin White. I mean, Kevin White was fucking Adonis, whatever analogy you want to. The guy was sculpted. He was outstanding, but unfortunately couldn't stay healthy. There were problems with the playbook and so forth. By the way, somebody in the chat room just said that Quinn reportedly was walking with a limp. Did you hear anything about that, Dan? Quinn was at the press conference today.
He's done that before, and he's been okay.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Did you hear that Quinn was a little bit? He didn't sound too happy about the Khalil Mack trade, and didn't want to use the word rebuilding. I got news for you: the team is rebuilding. Robert Quinn. Did you hear his quotes on any of that stuff?
I have not. Like, I apologize for not
right.
being up to date on today's events. I was just tied up, man. I was busy.
No worries at all. But yeah, Quinn did express his displeasure at the use of the word rebuild, and but the fact of the matter is that it is. Interestingly, Ryan Poles was asked about that word, and listen to his hesitation here at the beginning of his response.
Well, yeah, no, the rebuild thing's like super sensitive. No, we're constructing a very good football team. Regardless of how you use whatever term that is, we just continue to add talent and young talent, older talent, whatever it takes to make the best team possible. Late night with the wife, you're watching TV, you get like the home network where, there's some rooms that are good. You might have to redo some countertops over here, some fresh paint over there. Some rooms are good. You don't need to touch them. So that's kind of the thought process there. That's not a rebuild either.
It's a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
It's a fixer-upper, he prefers to call it. That's what the Bears
I like that, and I like Robert Quinn. Well, based upon the paraphrase that you have given me, if you were a player, even if we were the scrubs, wouldn't you think going into the season, like you can't concede that we're going to suck? So, like, you have to have hope that you're going to win. I mean, I know you're getting paid, but still, if you thought like there was no chance of winning whatsoever, wouldn't that just kill your desire? So the fact that Quinn doesn't want to concede that point and thinks that they can win or wants them to win, I like it.
Yeah. In fact, I got the quote here because I don't think he said it on camera, but I pulled the quote for the Greg Gabriel show today. And oops, where'd it go? Didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this and then go to banners. This is what Mr. Quinn said about that topic. Where the hell is it? Darn it. Here it is. He said, I don't think that's the right way we should phrase it, rebuild, because the guys in the building are professionals, and I think everyone carries themselves to high expectations. I believe, me personally, that no player is better than me, and I believe everyone else should carry themselves the same way. So to say a rebuild is, I guess, a funny word. I think it's just getting guys to believe, and I'm slowing down here because the crawl is slower than my reading. I think it's just getting guys to believe who they truly are and perform at their high level. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If that Quinn's words there really resonated with me. He doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. He wants to be a part of getting better and winning games. So I'll buy that. But let's face it, when you trade Khalil Mack, it's a rebuild,
I don't know. You got a second round pick. I didn't want Khalil traded either, but Robert Quinn did the overwhelming majority of his damage with Khalil out. So maybe Poles said, well, this is one of our chips we can get another pick for, and we still have this other guy who can be our pass rusher. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. Maybe they trade him on Thursday too and get into the first round.
Yeah, I saw a headline from one of the Chicago newspapers. I didn't get a chance to read the article, but the fact is that the team might be better off trading Robert Quinn if the right offer is made on draft day. And, there are teams out there that are going to be in need of an established pass rusher, somebody who can come in immediately and give you double-digit sacks. And so, the phone might be ringing for Ryan Poles. Excuse me. I was trying to hold that sneeze. Get the sentence out. But so what I hate to do, though, like with the Khalil Mack trade, basically what you get is a second round pick. And so with that second round, you essentially just have to replace Khalil Mack, and try to find a gem that can play at Khalil Mack's level. And so you have him for less dollars and stuff. And so,
to me, Khalil was a second round talent at this point. I hate to say that. And you cut salary. So in hindsight, I can see where Poles is coming from. Emotionally, I would have liked to have seen him stay because I wanted to see him live up to that trade in 2018. But I mean, I can't fault the man for trading him because he was probably our top asset other than Fields.
Do you look back at that Khalil Mack trade and say that it was a failure, a somewhat success, or a success?
I mean, at best, I'll say somewhat of a success. It's still laughable to think that he made number 60 in the Bears' all-time top 100 list. I mean, I don't think they would have put him there if they'd have known the next 3 years that were coming.
Right.
I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Which trade, and now that we've got some hindsight with both, or not the other one being a free agent acquisition, which was better, Julius Peppers or Khalil Mack? I thought they were both, in hindsight, extremely disappointing, given the money they paid Julius and the 2 first-rounders for Khalil and the contract, no less.
Yeah, that is a great question. Let's hear it, chat room. What do you think was a better trade, the acquisition of Julius Peppers or the acquisition of Khalil Mack? I, for one, I remember the 100 Proof guys, Phil and Shane, making fun of me because I said, I don't think we should trade for him. Let's just wait to free agency, because I hate to give up draft picks. I hate to give up draft assets because you could potentially find, even in a mid-round, you can find a guy that is blossoming and could become the next Khalil Mack. I know that's rare. I know that's super rare, but you're giving up more than one opportunity to find that gem. I don't like trading for superstars unless like the Rams did when they made these in-season acquisitions, like for Von Miller. They knew that they were going to go to the Super Bowl, had a great chance to win the Super Bowl. They didn't have a rookie quarterback. They had an established quarterback who looked Super Bowl ready. The Bears were like still in their infancy in so many ways. And Khalil Mack maybe took the defense from a B to an A in that first season he was here. But it certainly didn't stay as an A during his tenure here because his body started to give out on him. And so you need to kind of assess those things when you're trading for players. Are we going to trade for a defensive lineman who's constantly being hit by double teams and triple teams and his body's going to wear down? How good is he going to be in year 2, year 3, or year 4 of that contract when we're still stuck for tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars for this player? So I don't know. Ryan Poe said in this press conference today, I prefer to build through the draft homegrown talent, and that's the way I am. I don't like trading for superstar guys. I like to find them through great drafting.
I said this, and I remember Zimmerman was critical of me at the time, which is fine. That's part of the fun of it. I don't mean that defensively, but I said at the time, I think this was probably 2-3 years ago, whatever. But I said that I thought when you give up 2 first-round picks for a defensive player, you better be trading for Lawrence Taylor. Now, maybe Zim took exception to that because he, not trying to talk shit. It is what it is. He was born when LT was in his last season, so he doesn't know how great Lawrence Taylor was.
Right.
So, but to me, when you tell me we're giving up 2 first-round picks, I'm expecting to have a guy like LT that could potentially be the league MVP, let alone Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
And now you're looking at Mack on his 3rd team.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, there's a chance this guy's going to be bouncing around the league like 4 or 5 teams before he retires now.
Yeah, you're right. I remember.
I bet he doesn't even make the Hall of Fame. He's got so much hype.
Wow, that's a good question.
I mean, God, he's going to be, like I said, he's going to have played with like as many teams as McMahon did if it keeps going the way it is.
Wow, that is a really good
question.
question.
I love Jim McMahon. So
yeah. By the way, Lawrence Taylor's name came up today in the Greg Gabriel show because somebody asked a question, what player did you watch on tape and say, holy cow, the guy just jumped up out of the tape, and Greg, just said, wow. And he immediately said, Lawrence Taylor. The first time I looked at tape of Lawrence Taylor, I was just effing amazed at the athlete that he was. Yeah. Lawrence Taylor.
Taylor's defense, or the way the impact he had on the league,
yes,
and the teams having to block him, was about, I'm going to say his impact on the league was almost as strong as the Beatles' impact on music, how every song is structured with verse, chorus, verse, because of the Beatles. That's the kind of impact Lawrence Taylor had on the league.
Is that why you hate the Beatles?
No, I don't hate the Beatles. They're not my thing. It was my mom's favorite band. It's just not, I don't know. Like, if you're playing the Beatles when they had the beards and were on drugs and shit, like, some of that's okay. But, like,
I love it.
The boy band stuff, it might as well be NSYNC in 1962.
You're absolutely right. They were.
I just want to hold your hand or whatever. Fuck all that. I'm not into that shit, man.
All right. Speaking of homegrown talent, Soulz was asked about drafting a wide receiver and the importance of drafting a wide receiver, because he's probably been getting calls from agents saying, yeah, this receiver is available and the price tags are just astronomical. So he spoke a little bit about that.
I truly believe in homegrown talent. I truly believe in drafting the right players and developing them here. And that'll help us in the long run. Especially, we see the cost of a lot of these top receivers is crazy. So it would benefit us to make sure we draft well and develop our own guys.
Makes me a little bit worried about Darnell Mooney, because Darnell Mooney is on track to catch 100 passes this season. So if that continues, he'll have, I think he's a free agent after the 2023 season. He could be one of those guys saying, okay, baby, time to pay me $30 million a year. So it kind of worries me. And so that leads me to believe that wide receiver in this draft, which is pretty deep, is going to be a high priority for Ryan Poles.
Yeah, and the same stigma that we keep hearing, whether there's validity to it or not, about how, well, Justin Fields isn't Poles' guy. He didn't draft him. Well, he didn't draft Darnell Mooney either. So maybe he will be more favorable to a guy he drafts paying a big contract to versus Ryan Pace's guy.
The thing, though, is that, the Bears, Eberflus and Poles talked about that they had done research into what a second-year quarterback needs most. And it was the answer to that question was a dependable wide receiver, a guy who on 3rd and 6, you're going to throw the ball to him because there's that chemistry, this type of chemistry that Rodgers developed with Devontae Adams and is going to miss out on this year. That's the type of chemistry that Fields and Mooney are developing this year. And if that's the case, then you pay them whatever is necessary to keep them.
I agree with you. I think it's kind of stupid to say, I didn't draft him, so I can't. He's your asset now.
Yeah.
So I think if he continues to grow, then you have to franchise him at the very least coming up in 2024 if he plays the way that we all think he can play.
And then the big topic that we've been talking about for weeks, if not months here, is the small amount of draft capital that this general manager inherited from Ryan Pace. And, we had heard him say before, those are the cards we dealt. He talked about that a little bit today.
It's definitely a challenge, but at the same time, that's why I was hired. That's why our group is doing what we do, is to take what we have and construct the best roster we can and have the best draft we can. I do think, we will be in the business depending on where it is and what it looks like and moving back and trying to create more. So that's just what we've been handed, and we're going to maximize that.
Worries me a little bit when I hear that, because I would really like to get some great players on round 2 and 3 with those 3 picks that they have. You trade down the chances of hitting on a plug and play player, a diamond in the rough, lessens the more you go down. But it almost seemed throughout this press conference that he was really intent on pursuing more draft picks. But we'll see. This is another intriguing part of this whole thing. How much can you believe that he's sharing with us? some of the things could be misdirection plays
on purpose,
Exactly.
like ahead of the draft. I mean, how many times have we talked about Ryan Pace signing Mike Glennon as a diversionary tactic because he thought he needed that necessary like camouflage to get Mitch for some reason.
He didn't fool anybody with that stupid move. Like, jeez, may have fooled me for a couple of minutes, but that was about it. But you're right. I mean,
same thing with Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, right? Exactly. Justin Fields, everybody knew they were going after a quarterback in that draft. But the difference is that they had the 20th overall pick in the first round. And so landing a quarterback, one of those top 5 quarterbacks in last year's draft, was difficult. So they couldn't quite guarantee that they were going to land the quarterback they wanted. Although this guy that went to the Houston Texans in round 2, Davis Mills, he would have been a nice consolation prize. Not that he has the physical talents and the college resume that Fields has, but the guy I think is going to be a good NFL quarterback.
I got a question for you, not to veer back a minute.
No, it's all right.
But at the time, people were saying Robert Quinn after 2020 was the worst acquisition in Bears history. You remember when people were saying that?
Yeah.
Or it was the worst free agent signing?
Yes.
Well, again, this is a little bit of hyperbole, I admit, but I know it was only $10 million, but it's hard for me to imagine a worse signing than Andy Dalton. That in recent time, other than the Rick Meyer trade.
Yeah.
What was worse than the 1 year, $10 million for Andy Dalton when Nick Foles could have probably outplayed him?
Yeah.
At the very least, if you didn't start Justin Fields, you could have gone to Big Dick Nick.
Yeah, Dan, that's an interesting point because I think, months ago I would have said, I don't think it's that bad of a deal. But in hindsight, being 2020, you're absolutely right. That
could have been Kyle Fuller's money.
Yep. And even George McCaskey got it right because when he was quoted as saying that when he saw Fields enter that preseason game and the electricity in the stadium, he was wondering, how come we're not giving this guy the opportunity to be the number 1 quarterback? And it was because they were trying to replicate the Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith scenario. The only problem is that Alex Smith had been there for years and had been running that offense, and they knew that he was good. And so they wanted to make that transition from Smith to Mahomes, and bringing in Andy Dalton, who was the backup quarterback with the Dallas Cowboys. That's not apples and oranges. That's apples and dried beets.
Exactly.
I don't know what that means, but
well, no, but it's just antithetical to. I get it. I understand the comparison, and I agree with you on that. I mean, that was a fallacy to suggest that Andy and Alex Smith were the same thing. It's completely the opposite, but that's the narrative they tried to sell us.
Yes, indeed. One of the very interesting, I thought, things that was shared at the press conferences, he revealed that they have been rehearsing for the draft, in that they have been doing simulated drafts and everybody takes their position. They even went to the point of having people call in with a draft proposal so that they know the chain of command. This guy is on line 3, he's offering this and so forth. They went through a complete rehearsal on that. And Poles said that that's sort of like one of the things he did in Kansas City. And he was asked, what have you brought from KC to Chicago? This is his response.
I can honestly say there's never one person making a pick or.
Yeah, he was asked specifically, can you tell us one player that you brought into the KC organization, or one specific thing that you did in Kansas City that we should know?
I can honestly say there's never one person making a pick or. Yeah, you get on the table for certain players, and we've already gone through that, and we're at the point now where pretty much the hay's in the barn. So when you go into draft day, it's a little bit more calm than everyone thinks. It's a little more quiet. Obviously, the phones might go off, and that creates a little bit of a deal. But, it's just on draft days in the past has just gone through the process because the work is in the board. So you kind of let everything trickle the way you're supposed to.
How much different is this weekend to be for you than any previous draft weekend? Just how big? I mean, obviously, the first time.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
But how much different is it? I mean, how well prepared? How different is it now this weekend as opposed to previous ones?
The responsibility of making the pick, and I mean, it's bigger. But at the same time, you just rely on the work that everyone put in to make the right decision. And that was the cool thing about doing a lot of these mock-up drafts is we feel comfortable with the way this thing's going to play out.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's this level of comfort. I'm glad that there was rehearsals. I come from a rehearsal background. I think that in order to excel at something, you should rehearse it. Now, a lot of people are gifted and, going to things, either gifted or lucky and go into things without rehearsal and nail it the first time. But I think that the odds of success are better if you go through the entire process, you rehearse it, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. Are you of that ilk, Dan?
Yeah, I'd like a run through, but if you want to compare it to us, I mean, we kind of have just been winging this.
And people have told us that, hey, you guys are winging. No, just kidding.
Well, no, but a lot of people have I don't want to sound like I'm beating my dick here, but a lot of people have praised us for having chemistry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with that said, we before the mic gets turned on, so to speak, we might talk about, all right, these are the topics, but we don't have like some big ass outline or something.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of go with it. So it depends, but we're also not drafting for the Chicago Bears.
Right.
So I think with something that important, a walkthrough or mock draft is certainly, I mean, they do them on TV constantly. So why not do it internally just to see? I get it. I agree with that. I like the fact that he wants to be prepared, and I want him to be great. So let's go.
Yeah, and I don't know if these rehearsals were. I'm pretty sure they were not more for, who are these teams going to pick? Who are they likely to pick? I think it was more for just process. How is this going to go as the clock is ticking down? Let's rehearse it so we don't go into this with nerves and stuff. Let's talk about every potential scenario that could come up and how we deal with it. And I think there's great value in that. And one of the interesting things about this particular draft is that we don't even know who the number 1 overall pick is going to be, or the number 2 or number 3. It is this year's draft is such a crapshoot. Doesn't mean that it's a bad draft. I disagree with my pal Mike North, who tweeted out today that this was not a strong draft. I think it could end up being a very strong draft because of the depth that there is. And in fact, Poles talked about that.
I would say the O-line depth is pretty good. There's some good depth with the DBs. There's a couple of defensive linemen. The running back class may not be top heavy, but there's like a ton. It's crazy how many running backs are. And I think a lot of it has to do with the COVID year. A lot of those guys are kicking back, so at middle to bottom, definitely in the free agency, there's a massive amount of players. That's why it took so much time to get the board set, not only at the top but at the bottom. There are a lot of players on this board.
Let me bring in our good buddy, Mr. Johnny Santucci. First, I got to remove your face off the screen here. By the way, I used a new picture of you, Dan. This is one of
good.
This is one of your pictures from maybe 5 years ago. You look so handsome in that picture.
Listen at you.
There he is. There's Johnny Santucci. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. What's happening, Aldo? Barflies, Danny?
What's up, Mr. Santucci?
Just sitting in the back room, watching the chat room, listening to the conversation. Ryan Poles giving his little spiel. All the draft excitement is in the air.
Do anything that Pohl said in any of those sound bites really strike you as something interesting, Tooch, that you wanted to comment on, or is at this point this is all kind of hot air? You want to see the draft. You're much more interested in seeing the results of his hard work than what he has described as the hard work that he and his scouting team has done.
Yeah, I like the thought. I can't remember where I read it, but he kind of did like a blind like player ranking with his scouts and stuff so that they wouldn't have any of the baggage of, giving their picks out in front of everyone else. I thought that was interesting and stuff. And all of the
let me explain that a little bit more, because what they did, Dan, and listeners, is they put up players from their board, and they did this silent poll. You don't raise your hands. You would use your cell phone to put in order the players that they liked best at a certain position. So they would go, let's say defensive tackle. Do you like this guy at number 1 or number 2 or number 3? And then you would put that into your phone and to see what the results. And he was really happy that there was sort of, in most cases, a unanimous feel on that. And then they did it horizontally to see, who's the number 1 player on their board, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I thought that was a very interesting exercise. I'm glad you brought that up, Tooch.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I don't know whether I read it on the Bears website, but he's got sort of a unique approach, I think, going into this, where he's engaging the scouts, and sort of not only just the traditional way, which he talked about how he's more of that's what struck me as the most interesting, was that he's more of a traditional scout, and even though he's innovating in different ways, it's still that's still kind of a traditional approach as well. Even though it's new, it's involved traditionally in scouting tape. That's the biggest thing. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's like Cliff says, he's been involved in meetings where people are afraid to say what they really think. Post fixed that by doing this anonymously. And, I hope that they can get to a point where they don't have to do it anonymously. Yeah. But clearly, every scout in there, except maybe one, it wasn't somebody that he hired. And so he needs to build that trust. I eventually would like to see a culture at Hallis Hall where people will say, hey, Ryan, I think you screwed up here. Here's why. And, keep it professional. But it's too early to trust that. So this particular tactic that they used to get player evaluations, I thought was very clever.
Yeah, Cliff made my point. That's what I was trying to say. He just said it better. That's what I was trying to say. Like bringing it out anonymously where they could kind of speak what's really on their minds.
Yeah, exactly. Do you like that idea, Dan?
The anonymity with the scouts, I think, is just brilliant. Like you said, no one has rapport with him yet. So in this instance, they can say what they really want to say and not have some kind of chilling effect over their heads. So I thought that was a great idea.
And if let's beat Ryan Pace at least a few more times before this draft is over. If Ryan Pace would have done that with his head coach, John Fox, regarding the Mitchell Trubisky thing, maybe he would have heard John Fox's concerns about Trubisky, and instead a Patrick Mahomes or a Deshaun Watson would have been drafted. Let's remember that Pace really had it narrowed down between Trubisky and Mahomes. He didn't even take Watson out to dinner, which is a disgrace in and of itself. To not
maybe he heard about butthole pleasures before. This guy has a G-spot in his ass. I don't know. I don't trust him.
It's like Greg says, sometimes they learn stuff about players and they take their name off the board. We don't even have his name on the board. Yeah. So that could have been the case with Watson. But if he would have had the trust and the confidence to listen to John Fox's concerns, then maybe, history is different. Maybe it's Patrick Mahomes, who was my favorite quarterback coming out of the draft. I'll say it for the 5,000th time. Maybe he would have been a Chicago Bear. Dan, you still hate Patrick Mahomes, though, right?
No, I hate all the dick sucking that everyone does for him and lets him get away with so many things. But like I said, I think you're seeing that now as their talent starts to sort of decrease in KC. I think you're going to see a 30 interception season from that guy sooner than later.
You know what, Tooch, we'll have to do a show in the future about prop bets like that, because, I wouldn't say 30 interceptions, but 20, 25 interceptions could definitely be in his future, because that was the big knock on Mahomes coming out of college is that he could get too erratic at times. And once he got erratic, his mechanics would just go all over the place. And there was a lot of inaccuracies. Somebody a year ago, even before last season, put together a highlight of all the near interceptions that Patrick Mahomes had. And there were a lot of like drop passes by cornerbacks. And you could say that for like every NFL quarterback. I know you could have said it for Mitchell Trubisky, but still it was alarming to see this, like maybe 25 possible interceptions that Mahomes could have had. But if it wasn't for the butterfingers of the opponent's hands, that was quite something to see. We'll see. That's going to be an interesting thing to follow, Tooch.
You could see at the end of the season with Mahomes, like he was always trying to do too much, especially in the playoff games and stuff. Towards the end, the AFC Championship game, he tried to do way too much. Try to where there was no play, make a play. Fit it in there. Use his arm talent. But I mean, it's a good point. I mean, who knows? They don't have Tarik Hill anymore. They're a little less dangerous. We'll see. That prop bet might be something to look at. The interceptions.
Well, and don't forget the Nagy factor.
Again, that they may be 40 because of Matt Nagy.
Could you imagine if they allowed Nagy to call the plays? It would be 40.
I so hate this fucking offense. I can't say it enough. When it's 4th and inches. And you're in the shotgun. It just baffles the mind. It's like you can't do anything that's smart or easy just because you have to show everyone how smart and how big your dick is all the time. I fucking hate this Kansas City offense. I hope it goes straight to hell.
I love it when you get mad. It's so sexy.
It's so horrible, man. You remember that game against Minnesota at the end of the year when we could have won and 4th and 1 from the goal line 2 different times, and he has Dalton in the shotgun, and on one of those sequences got sacked for like a 12-yard loss.
Yep.
Just give it to David Montgomery.
Yep.
How hard is that? Or go play action. Fake it. Why do you have to be in a shotgun? Okay, I'm off my fucking soapbox.
I love it, man.
I can't stand Kansas City's scheme. And Andy Reid just kind of fell into this shit because if you remember, when he was in Philadelphia, every year he got in the playoffs, he got fucking scared and tight and wouldn't let McNabb throw the ball. And all they did was run the ball. So he got to Kansas City and he implemented that, we'll play that, we'll pass short as a running, like a West Coast to the point where we're going to just throw short, and let that count as our runs. And then that evolved in, we're going to throw a lot more deep now. And he just sort of evolved and fell into this passing every down and being so aggressive because, again, before he was ultra conservative. In both instances, he's on the extremes, the extreme conservative and the extreme aggressive, in my opinion.
Well, that's a good opinion. Foster Cover says Nagy'd. That definition, a player who has been under Nagy, improper evaluations. That's good. Speaking of trading up, we were talking about trading up a little while ago. Poles was asked that during the press conference. He gave this response.
Yeah, it comes back down to your board. So there's different values on your board, and if you have certain players that are in a certain section of the board, and it makes sense for your team at that time, then that's something you have to do at the right time. But I think you have to know kind of where your team's at and how many picks you have, and it's a big picture decision because there is an effect of losing picks to move up and get that player.
It's interesting that he didn't rule it out. And of course he wouldn't. You got to take every phone call that's made to potentially move up. But he said something there that I thought was interesting about the board. That part of the board, I think, was the quote. And I think that, the board is very intricate, and they probably have a column for positions that they think there isn't a lot of depth, or maybe a column that is about players they truly covet. This guy would be worthy if he fell like to the top of the second round. This guy, might be worthy moving up a few spots to really nail him. And we know some of the other teams have a need at that position. I again feel that because there's so much depth in this draft, if you're going to trade up and lose draft assets when you really need a lot of players, you better hit a home run. I mean, not even a home run. You got to hit fucking grand slam, 4 at bats, because that is so critical. This team, I mean, he even said it afterwards or during the press conference. They are going to sign a lot of undrafted free agents, and that's a problem. Why? Because there's only, as Greg explained to us earlier today on his show, Gabriel Talks Football, GTF, there's a limited pool of money allocated to every team for these undrafted free agents. So if you're going to sign a bunch of them, then that money is watered down. And so you might miss out on some really good prospects, undrafted prospects, because you don't have the funding that other teams might have to acquire those guys. Again, it's part of the fucking mess that Ryan Pace left. As much as Dan dislikes Matt Nagy, I dislike
and
Ryan
I
Pace.
do.
I think I dislike Ryan Pace more than you dislike Matt Nagy. We'll have to
I came after both of them.
Richie Kotite is our coach than Matt Nagy.
That's good. Oh, let's see. I got more sound bites here, but I think I've played everything. Oh, one more. This was about Justin Fields and trying to balance what Justin Fields needs. We've all been talking about, I've seen a lot of comments in the chat for this show and other shows. Make sure you walk away with 2 wide receivers who are guys that compete for starting jobs immediately. Well, Poles addressed that, and it's a fascinating response.
Anytime you just improve the team overall, you're helping all of the players out, and that can look different. I mean, you could say, well, he needs receivers, but he needs blocking too, and he also needs balance in terms of running the ball efficiently and getting that done up front, and then you can do some play action pass stuff. You can do different things. So it all touches turnovers, maybe returner to flip the field to score more points. So it's all connected, and that's really why the mindset is to get the best players on this team as possible. If I get too lopsided, be like, I got to do this specific thing, I think that's where you lead into big mistakes.
And that leads to my contention that maybe that's a good reason to keep Robert Quinn, because if you have Robert Quinn on the team and he can deliver a dozen sacks, that in turn is going to help Justin Fields, because you're likely to get the ball faster. You're likely to get better field position. So, it's all interconnected. So it's kind of interesting that although this could be one of those misinformation things, they could walk out of this draft with 5 wide receivers. It'll be interesting again to see how this all plays out, guys.
I agree with you on the Quinn thing. It would make us a better team to have him, especially if he can have a season anywhere near the one he had in 2021. But I also see the benefit in trading him as well. So you can look at it both ways. I think the way people are harping on wide receiver, I still feel that the offensive line is the one that I'm most worried about, and the one that I would be, if you traded up for the kid from Ohio State that played with Fields, I wouldn't be upset at all. But I also wouldn't be upset if their top 2 picks were linemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, you're talking about a guy who used to play the offensive line position, a guy who was with Kansas City and saw his team lose a Super Bowl because they did not have offensive line depth after a number of their starters went down. You're seeing a guy who is old school, and we know that old school is you build from the line of scrimmage out. So I'm with you on that. What's interesting here is Don Burr, our resident Detroit Lions fan, a guy who I love having here at the bar room. He says, I can't wait to come here Thursday after we smoke the draft and hear all the duck talk, LOL. And I got to tell Don this, and I know Dan is really, really high on the I hate Detroit meter, not as much as Green Bay, but you are.
No, I don't hate Detroit. Like I said, I empathize with Detroit.
But don't you hate them just because they're in our division? I mean, you want to beat their ass.
I mean, I'm not rooting for them, but and I'm not just saying this because Kramer ended up being with us, but in 91, when they were in the NFC Championship game against Washington, I rooted for Detroit.
Okay.
And I can't ever think of a game where I rooted for Green Bay unless it was going to help the Bears somehow.
Right. Well, the point that I wanted to make regarding the Lions is they have, and Don, correct me on this or share with us the accurate number. They have, I think, 4 draft picks in the first 73 picks of this draft. The Bears have 3 in the first 79, but none in the first round. And my point is that the Lions are in great fucking position to drastically 5 in the top 100, Don Bursers. They are in position to dramatically improve their team. They're still going to
because the Stafford trade.
Because of the Stafford trade, exactly. They're still going to have problems at quarterback. I'm not convinced Goff is capable of leading that team to the Super Bowl like he did the Rams, because the Rams were loaded in so many areas and the Lions still aren't there. And the Rams have really the resident number 1 coach in the NFL in Sean McVay. Everybody's trying to copy the Sean McVay way. But my point is the Lions have a great opportunity to leapfrog past the Bears in the standings, make a run for the division championship, and I am going to be fascinated to see how they fuck it up.
Yeah, I would say that in theory, I like what you said, though. In theory, I always had a special place for Minnesota in my heart because of those Super Bowl losses, because I empathize with that. You're always losing.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go through the order, Green Bay is the one I hate the most. Minnesota would be second, and then Detroit would be last, because they've just lost so much, and they're not that. I mean, like I said, I feel like if anything, they should understand us. But I thought the same thing about the Browns fans, and they treated us like shit. So,
and one of the things, though, and Dan, you're a fabulous historian of the Chicago Bears. So, but do you recall the animosity between Chicago and Detroit for so many years because of some of the dirty play by the Detroit Lions? And not to say that the Bears didn't engage in some dirty play themselves, but there were guys like Mike Lucci and Alex Karras. And these guys, were the type of guys that would fucking bite your nose off when they're in a scrum. They would poke you in the eye like the Three Stooges. These guys were some fucking dirty ass players. And then I'll never forget, and I know, Dan, you've talked about this before, that moment when Wayne Fontes is smoking that fucking cigar when they got into the playoffs on a Monday night game. They weren't playing. Fontes was watching, and he's smoking his fucking cigar and rubbing it into Chicago. Oh, I'm getting depressed. I need to change the subject.
You heard when Eric Kramer was on here, even Kramer saw that and thought, oh, God, if we have to play them again now.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, even Kramer thought, oh, that's too far. You've gone too fucking far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've always said over and over, if we'd have somehow, because, again, Jim Harbaugh was in the hospital on the Friday before that Dallas game.
Mm-hmm.
He was sick. Give him credit for playing and being there. But he was sick, man, and he had a shitty game. He did. He threw, and we had one chance down 17-13 with the ball back, and he got picked off. I still think if he'd have been well, or if somehow we got that victory against Dallas, that we would have beaten Detroit and we'd have been in the championship game. I've always thought that.
Don is saying that those of us following the old Detroit narrative need to go watch Inside the Dens episode on YouTube. It's a different era in Detroit. Well, see, Don, the only thing that's going to convince me, I don't need to watch, some propaganda film put together by the Detroit Lions organization. I want to see their play on the field. Dan and I watched the Lions play at Soldier Field this past season. We were sitting shoulder to shoulder watching that. That game was lost by Dan Campbell. I mean, the Bears made some really superlative plays. I saw a replay, I think yesterday, of that Darnell Mooney 80-some yard catch, 90-yard catch. No, it was about an 80-yard catch. Tremendous play. It was coming right at Dan and I. And the Bears played well in that game, but Jesus, the Lions had so many opportunities in the red zone.
He just kept going for it on fourth down instead of taking the field goals, and they would have won.
They would have won that game, and the biggest issue I think for the Lions this season is that they got to hope that their coach has learned how to coach.
I like him though, in the sense, not what he says, but throughout the year, whenever there was a tight play, if I was casually watching in Detroit, like they lost in the Minnesota and shouldn't have, but for them to make the comeback and to get that lead, it took a huge set of balls. But unfortunately, Minnesota got the ball back with like 20 seconds to go and still came back down the field and won. But yeah, give Campbell credit for at least having the temerity to go for it on fourth down. But in that game at Soldier Field, it just happened to cost them, because the thing was, Prater's a very good kicker.
Yes.
And these were chip shots, not only for Matt Prater, but even for like Cody Parkey, they were chip shots.
Yeah,
there would have been like 25-yard field goals, and he turned down like 3 or 4 of them.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm the jury's still out for me on this head coach. You know, to me, he's going to make a ton of money on television because he does come across as the kind of guy who could be the next John Madden on TV. You know, did you see that play there, Pat? You know, he was breaking their kneecaps or whatever. He's got such a charismatic type personality, but you know, stories that he didn't know certain rules, some of the time clock management stuff. If he doesn't get that shit straightened out, then he's got to go. What's Don saying about Campbell? Campbell wasn't coaching to win. He's coaching to build culture. Get out of here. Let's build a losing culture. Come on. You got to win games. That's the way you build a
culture. Is so overrated.
Really
I mean, that's what we said with John Fox. That's what we said with Matt Nagy about at least the culture is not as bad as it was when Mark Trestman was here. And if you look at Detroit, they were kind of saying the same thing when the fucker from New England got there with the beard. What's his name again?
Patricia.
Patricia. Remember when Patricia got there, he was taking away their parking spots and doing it the Patriots way, and was going to be tough on them because they needed discipline, and that's what they were going to need to win, and it was a complete and utter disaster. So culture is kind of overrated. It's only in the extreme example when it really falls apart that you feel desperate to have a good culture. I mean, and that being the 2014 year with Trestman, where the team
I don't
literally.
think either of those guys knew what culture was, Fox and Nagy.
What was that?
I don't think either of those guys knew what good culture was.
Well, I do think that Fox did a nice job of changing the culture. I mean, you remember those years prior to Fox. I mean, that with Brandon Marshall yelling at Robbie Gould, and you know, it was a mess. I think the only value of culture is the type of culture that, you know, a guy that I hate, and I know Dan hates, Bill Belichick at New
Jim
England.
McMahon hates him too.
That's right. He sure enough fucking does. I mean, you got to build a culture because these guys are all alpha males. And so you've got to build a culture of responsibility, accountability, and playing for each other. And one of my favorite quotes, and I think it's one of the favorite quotes of all time, capturing Bill Belichick on the sideline: do your fucking job. That's the culture you need to build. You don't need to build a culture of, you know, being super tough and you're going to fucking bite guys in the knees and all that shit. You don't fucking need that. You need a culture of accountability. And then after that, you let these raging animals play their fucking football game in a controlled chaos type of culture.
Well, let me just play devil's advocate.
Please.
I can't say that I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to, you know, spice it up here on the show.
I like that.
Maybe Dan Campbell is their version of Mike Ditka. You know, a lot of bravado, a lot of toughness, but there was accountability with Ditka. But still, he had a lot of over-the-top shit to say, especially early on. Not as dumb as what Campbell was saying last year in that opening press conference about, I'm going to hit you with the pedigree and a power bomb and all these wrestling shit. But whatever he said. But the point is, maybe he's their Ditka. I think that's a huge stretch, but I'm just saying maybe.
No, actually, that thought crossed my mind too, Dan, and that there is value of having somebody come in with that kind of Ditka mentality. the problem that I have with Campbell, and in those years with Ditka, man, I would watch each Bears game, multiple times because first of all, they were winning and it was enjoyable to watch them multiple times. But even before the 84-85 season when they turned things around, I don't recall Ditka making the type of coaching errors Campbell did at Detroit, not knowing certain rules, clock management issues. It's a different NFL now. But I just don't remember Ditka being as bumbling as Campbell came off in his rookie season. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking at history distorted.
I agree with that. I think that's a fair assessment. Mm-hmm. But at least Campbell's given you his heart. I don't want to keep defending Detroit, but at least that I don't think this bravado shit from him is fake.
No,
I think that's just who he is. I don't
Absolutely.
think he's not trying to be Donald Trump, who was just trying so desperately to make you think he's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Dan Campbell probably would whip some ass, and
I
probably
totally
is tough.
do.
So
yeah,
I think he's being himself. And again, I don't hate Detroit. The only reason I would hope that they lose all their games is because it would help us. So if they were in the AFC Central or AFC North, I'm sorry, I wouldn't give a shit if they were winning. I mean, it'd be good. Okay, fine. I have nothing against the city of Detroit.
I agree with you. Dan Campbell seems to me to be a totally authentic and genuine person. I also agree with Nomad, who writes in the chat, Dan Campbell's a meathead. That's like what gets him in trouble. I love it. All right. I think I have played out all of the soundbites. I still have some, but I think we can move on. I wanted to share with you guys like sort of a wish list of draft picks that, man, oh man, I wish these guys could fall to us with the 39th pick or the 48th pick or whatever it is, or even a day 3. I wish this guy, who a lot of people are thinking could be a day 2 pick, I wish he would fall to day 3. So a few names, I'll get through this pretty quickly unless there's a lot of reaction in the chat. Excuse me for burping. First player, darn it, and I put it in the wrong place. It is coming right up. Let's take a look at the offensive line position. Offensive line, the Trevor Penning or Charlie Cross are hands down considered first round picks. It will be highly, highly unlikely unless something happens. I mean, maybe there's a video of Charlie Cross wearing a gas mask doing some really good dope. And if that's the case, I'm drafting him at number 39 because he's just probably, he's certifiably a first round talent. So if a guy like Trevor Penning or Charlie Cross fell to the second round, I'm like saying, all right, this is a done decision. I don't care who else is on the board. Grab one of those guys.
Welcome to Fantasy Island.
You got that right, brother. And then another guy that I really like a lot, and actually Danny Shimon likes him too, but he doesn't think he is worthy of a second round pick because he's a developmental guy. But Greg Gabriel says that this guy really has first round talent. He does not agree with Danny's opinion on Bernard Rainman. And it is true that he is still a developing player. He's developing his strength and technique, but he is the epitome of what Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus have said they want in offensive linemen: an athlete, a fluid athlete who can react well and can match the speed of the NFL. He's a little older, as Dane Brugler writes in his piece. He's a little older than you'd want for a rookie, but I don't give a fuck. The guy can play. He's 25 years old. That still makes him a 10-year player in my book. You see what the left tackle with the Rams did, the guy that just retired, Whitworth, he played till 39? No, it's a different
And
NFL.
Conversely, we drafted a very young James Daniels, and we just let him walk.
Exactly.
And what was he, 20 when he started?
He was, I think, I remember
20.
He used to talk about it all the time. I think he was 19 or 20. Yeah.
He was 20.
Yeah, 25. So what?
Yeah. Wasn't even old enough to drink, and we drafted him. And I'm still crossing my fingers we didn't make a big mistake on that. But
Rain Man hasn't played that long. He doesn't have a ton of experience. He came to college as a tight end. He was light, put on the weight, and converted to offensive tackle. He's Austrian like Arnold.
He's Austrian, exactly. So he almost kind of reminds me a little bit of a Kyle Long type player, because they say that he plays with a mean streak too. So I'm all in on Bernard Raymond. He falls to round 2. All right, go get him, because I understand what Danny is saying, and I think there's truth to that he's going to need a year or two to be a true starting talent, but the skill set is there for this guy to be a dominating left tackle. And then at number 3, Penning and Cross, I had tied at 1 because it's so improbable that any one of them will be available in the second round. So number 3, Tyler Smith. This is another guy who needs time to develop, but my God, he has great play strength. He's got physical traits. He needs to improve some of his mental aspects and technical aspects of the game, but that's why you hire coaches. He may not be ready to play right away. Some people say. I personally think that you can, especially given the chat.
Play guard.
Yeah, exactly. I think this guy is necessary. And Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, this guy should definitely be available in round 2. But I put him on the list because I think he deserves a lot more credit, more positive grades than I've been seeing in drafts where I've actually seen him fall to round 3. I think he's a round 2 talent. I like Georgia players for the most part. I think he's a guy who could come in here and help the team almost immediately. And then the kid out of Kentucky, he's an inside offensive lineman, Darian Kennard. But, oh, my gosh, this guy is a flesh-eating offensive lineman. He does not take shit. He's got a mean streak on him, but doesn't necessarily take bad penalties. He's got a lot to work on in his game, which is why he's not a first-round talent. But, man, he's on my wish list. I really, really would love to see one of these 6 offensive linemen become a Chicago Bear by the end of this week, by the end of Friday. So we shall see. Any thoughts on that, Tooch? I know you've been following the draft a little.
Yeah, Trevor Penning, of course. He's played college ball in Cedar Falls at Northern Iowa. Like him, I don't think he'll make it out of the first round to Charlie Cross. Probably one of the top 2 or 3 offensive tackles in the draft, probably. Tyler Smith, like that pick, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, played with Justin Fields,
Ohio State, or is that Georgia?
I thought he was Ohio State, but
could be wrong. I've made mistakes before. But what do you think about Kennard from Kentucky?
Kennard, yeah, he's a mauler. I like Aaron Kurt was talking about him on Barfly Tailgate.
Oh, he loves him. He's from Kentucky.
Yeah.
So.
Give Aaron a Kentucky player. Is Petit-Ferrer Ohio State?
Let me check. I haven't checked on that.
Oh, okay. I thought he was Ohio State, but that's a guy who Justin Fields is familiar with. If I'm thinking of the same guy, the left tackle on the Buckeyes.
Oh, let me see.
Yeah, he's Ohio State. Yeah,
well,
according to Meal.
I said
Ohio State.
I believe everybody in the chat. They're much smarter than I am. All right, so done with the offensive lineman there. Let me look at another. I basically did 3 position groups.
I like the Rain Man kid.
Oh my gosh.
If he can develop, he could be one of those guys that you're looking at, as bordering on making the Pro Bowl. He's just got some raw talent. He's a good athlete and stuff, left tackle traits.
Yep.
As long as we're not getting Dustin Hoffman.
Rayman reference. Rayman. You like that movie, Dan?
No.
If he would have said yes, I would have been very surprised all day.
I mean, that's too close to reality. Who wants to watch a guy that, well, I don't know what he was on the spectrum. I don't know what exactly it was. I mean, but fuck.
Autism, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's so painful to watch. I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those movies that just wins. Like Bill Maher is always saying that they always pick movies that are, you can't just pick a big movie. It's got to be about somebody that's deaf or somebody that's impotent. Or
right.
It's like it's another one of those movies. They had to make it.
We'll talk about that movie later, Aldo. But yeah, what was that movie? Was it Tropic Thunder? Never go full. Was it? I don't want to say
never
the word.
Never
Tropic
saw
Thunder. No, okay.
I saw it. It sucked.
the point is that playing like handicapped people could get the Oscar. It's what like Dustin Hoffman won for Rain Man, right?
I think he did. He did. Poor Tom Cruise was overlooked again. All right, let me move on to wide receivers. My 5: Christian Watson. Hold on a second there. Christian Watson, Jalen Tolbert, Sky Moore, Jahan Dodson, and Traelin Burks. Real quickly, Christian Watson is that speedster, really tall guy from North Dakota State University. Greg is convinced he's going to be a late first-round pick, that there's no way the Packers or the Kansas City Chiefs will let him go by if he's available. And both of those teams, I think the Chiefs, too, have 2 late first-rounders. I know the Packers do. Jalen Tolbert from, I think it's South Alabama. This guy was Shimon and Stopchinski introduced me to him, and I looked at his tape. The guy is just a phenomenal football player. I think a lot of people have him like going in the 3rd round. I think if he's there in the 2nd round, you just make sure you get him. Sky Moore is another speedy, kind of like Tarik Cohen, even though he's not as small as Tarik Cohen, but he is a smaller receiver, but he's just an electrifying player. Jahan Dodson is one of these kind of Cooper Kupp players from Penn State. And then Traelin Burks, who a lot of people have been saying he's definitely going to be a first rounder, but after his performance at the Combine, where his 40 was closer to 4.6 than 4.4, a lot of people are seeing him drop out of the first round. I'm not that high on him, but I got to admit that his reel is pretty impressive, what he does after the catch. I'd like to have a speedier core of wide receivers, and Watson, Tolbert, more are that. Dotson, again, is not as speedy as those first 3, but definitely gets the job done with outstanding route running. What do you think, Dan? You like any of these guys? I know you've been studying them.
I was more impressed with the offensive line talk.
Okay.
And not that I'm bored about the wide receiver. I just feel like we're more, to me, I think that the offensive line is more of a position of need. But I could be wrong. I'm certainly not the draft expert. I'm not Danny Shimon.
But
I'm just Dan, and I'm not Mr. I always fucking.
I agree with Dan.
An intro for him. Neil Truss. Neil, how do you say Neil's last name?
Stopchinski.
Okay. Well, I'm not him either. And I'm not Greg Gabriel. But I can say that, to me, I agreed with your assessment on the line. If we could get 2 of those guys, would be incredible.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Hell fucking yeah. And I saw somebody in the chat say we need more guards than tackles. I'm focused. I haven't really been focused that much on guards. I've been focused on tackles, because if a player fails at tackle, you can move them inside. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if in 2023 you got Jenkins and Bourne as the 2 guards for this team, and I would feel really good about it too. I'm pretty sure that Tevin Jenkins will end up being a good right tackle, but tackles sometimes are a little bit harder to find because of the foot speed necessary for that position. So that's why I've been kind of focused on offensive tackles more than offensive guards. But I'm not going to argue with you or anyone regarding, what is more necessary for this team, a guard or a tackle.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with Dan with the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Poles does too. What's interesting is when you look at the draft, both offensive tackles and wide receivers, they come with extra baggage, should we say, not like personal baggage, but they command higher salaries as they progress through their careers, like cornerbacks. These are the positions, edge rushers, pass rushers. These positions, they get the big bucks when their contract comes up. So what teams seem, I'm not sure, but teams seem to be doing is grabbing those positions in the first round because it comes with an extra contract year. So thus those positions get pushed up higher in the draft, and the more first round draft picks are those, positions, usually offensive tackle, left tackle, primarily cornerback, edge, wide receiver, and quarterback. And in fact, this draft is odd because this might be the first year in quite a long while that there won't be a quarterback in the top 10.
That's amazing.
You always see quarterbacks at the top. How many pass? We're talking about which quarterback? Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow. This year we're not talking about any quarterbacks in the top 10. I find that really interesting.
And I will be shocked if not at least one team picks a quarterback or trades it into the top 10 to select a quarterback. Who is the quarterback who has lately been moving up draft charts? I'm drawing a blank. Malik. Malik is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions traded their late first round pick to move up to select him. Don Burr, if you're in the chat room, what do you think about that assessment? But yeah, you're right. This is a weak year for quarterbacks. Like Greg Gabriel said, let's hope that 4 or 5 of them, though, are selected in the first round, because that means players that we desire, players that we need, are going to fall to us at 39. So
that's a great point. You might see some of these guys that really aren't first round picks get picked at the tail end of the first round just because of that extra contract year.
Yep. By the way, Foster is asking you too, what's Dieter Iceland been up to? We need to get him on the show.
Yeah, I thought he moved to center, and was taking reps at center. He's still on the roster.
Yeah.
So he'll be one of the backup offensive linemen with a chance to compete. Maybe he moves into one of those guard positions. Who knows? The Bears, Ryan Poles and the coaching staff, offensive line coach, might know something that we don't know. They might be thinking, hey, we got some guys that we could plug in at guard. We don't need to draft a guard. Because fans really, they want us to draft. They want to draft a guard, and there's some good guards in this draft. And like we always say in Barroom, man, you could find guards, late in the draft that turn out to be, we got undrafted free agents, 6th-round picks making Pro Bowls at guard. So maybe they're not really looking at guard in this draft. You might be really surprised to see maybe the first-round picks or a second round. If the Bears' first pick is a cornerback, if guys like McCreary or what's that other guy's name? The kid from Washington,
Kyler Gordon.
One of those guys falls the second round. So it'll be awful tough for Ryan Poles to pass one of those guys up.
Exactly. How about that scenario, Aldo? You loved Quentin Nelson so much, and I'm not mocking that at all. This has got to be year 5 for him. Is he a free agent after this year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's on the same contract as Roquan Smith. So
maybe we could sign your guy in 23.
There's a chance of that. I actually was talking to Greg Grable about that. He's good friends with the general manager over at Indianapolis. He doesn't think that they're going to let Quentin Nelson get away. But if he does, he would be worth every penny he's going to get, because he's going to get probably the largest contract ever awarded an offensive lineman, and it's going to shock people because it's a guard. Although there has been even talk that they might move him out to the tackle position because he's just so goddamn good and versatile. But I think they're going to keep him inside. The value of guards in today's passing offenses is really high. But yeah, I hear you, Dan. If he's available as a free agent, we're going to have a lot of cap space. So yeah, let's go after him. He would be a great addition. And speaking of the cornerbacks that you were talking about, Tooch,
here you got some listed there. All right.
Yeah, here's my 5 that are my wish list. First of all, Kair Ilam, I think I got that pronunciation correctly, but he's a guy who has not been talked about much at all here at the Barroom. It's funny that Shimon and Stopchinski have not really done a formal evaluation of him. Greg hasn't either on our draft shows. But this is a guy, when I first stumbled onto his tape, because I was cross-sectioning, top cornerbacks, and then I go look at tape. This is a guy who, to me, is a superb player. He's got great size. He's got great speed. Dane Brugler over at The Athletic says he is NFL ready. He's physical to play the press man position, but can also play that cover 2 kind of zone position. If he falls to round 2, and knowing, like Greg has been pounding the table saying, we've got to get a cornerback in round 2 because this is a passing league now and you need corners. And I totally agree with him, especially if you don't have Khalil Mack anymore to help with that pass rush. So you need those corners who can stick with guys a second longer, who can play that zone at a high level. Ilam is an outstanding prospect who I would love to see wearing a Chicago Bears uniform. Tooch, have you seen any of his tape?
Yeah, the Florida usually spits out good cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
He's another one. He's got good height, weight, speed, good in press coverage. Uses his length. That would be great. He might be there at 2. Their second pick.
Might be, but I see him going in a lot of mocks in the first round, and he's rarely available in round 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if he is available, and if so, and then let's say you got a choice between Bernard Rainman and Ilam. Wow, that would be a tough choice. I would probably go with offensive linemen, but I would also study who's drafting behind me. Do they need offensive linemen? And if not, then maybe take that corner and then hope that Bernard Raymond is there available with that second round pick. That's going to be an interesting thing.
There might be people or teams that don't want to take a chance on a developmental prospect.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a team that's going to be willing to wait a year or 2, get them coached up, trained up, and all that.
That's another fascinating thing about the NFL draft is you have to study the tendencies of other general managers. What have they done in the past? What are they likely to do? If they're a new general manager, where do they come from? What have they done? What have their organizations done in the past? So that's going to be interesting. When people do that about Ryan Poles, they're going to really have a hard time assessing that, because even though Poles was just with one team, the Chiefs, he was under a number of different general managers, working under a different general manager. So he might bring in his own unique style in drafting. I'll go quickly with the 4 other names: Kyler Gordon from Washington, Cam Taylor-Britt, Roger McCreary, and Tarik Woolen. Just a note about Roger McCreary, because I know our guy Jordan Silveria, who is often here in the chat, he's been having debates with Greg Gabriel. The thing about Roger is he's got very short arms. He would have the shortest arm length of any cornerback in the NFL if he became a starter for the Chicago Bears. And that turns off Greg Gabriel. Now, Jordan says, I understand that, but he's got incredible. Yeah, exactly. He's gone up against SEC wide receivers and held his own against these guys. And it was interesting. They were going back and forth earlier in our show. And I think, to me, Greg kind of got him with the checkmate. He said, if you are an NFL scout, are you going to gamble on this once in a lifetime kind of guy, a once in a generation type guy, a short arm cornerback being a top NFL player, or are you going to go with a safer pick like a Bernard Rainman or a Christian Watson at wide receiver or something like that? That's a tough argument. We'll see how that turns out. And then the other one that I like.
I have a similar story of myself and Greg Gabriel.
Oh, excellent.
Where a couple years back, where I liked Quandre Diggs, a player for the Bears to take. And he didn't like him because he was too small. But this guy's a Pro Bowls at safety now. So, you never know. That's the main point, is that we don't know. We're projecting. Yeah. I asked him about Quandre Diggs on Twitter because I like the prospect. Could have good ball skills, no ball hawk, and he didn't like him. I liked him. So,
Greg is not a big fan of the Mickey Mouse or Mighty Mouse type of players.
Right, the smaller guys.
Right. And then just a quick note on the fifth guy here, Tarik Woolen. Tarik Woolen is definitely a prospect. He, to me, is definitely, if he's available in the third round and you haven't picked a cornerback already, he's the guy to go get. He probably will not be ready to start day one. Maybe he will, but he will contribute right away in some way. This is a guy who has outstanding speed, incredible height for a cornerback, incredible tape. He's put together so many things but you can't expect him in 2022 to come in and play at a super high level. He needs coaching. He needs a little development, but I really, really like this guy a lot. And if he's available in round 3, got to go get him. He's one of my fantasy picks.
Do we have a third? We don't have a 4th round pick, right?
Correct.
Okay. I couldn't remember. I know Tarik Woolen's from a real small school.
Yeah.
Like Texas San Antonio, but I guess they're not that small. They're pretty good. The Road Runners, meet. But yeah, that's a guy you might be able to get later on, maybe in the 3rd round, like you said. But yeah, I think we got to add a corner.
Yeah. Dan, from a position standpoint, we had on, by the way, Dan, Sanjay Jovanovic, our pal.
Yeah, that's the guy that always messages me on Twitter.
Yeah, we had him on our mock draft with Barflies, and he admitted, I don't really follow the draft, but I'd like to come on and share with you the positions of need. So, Dan, I'll ask you, if you were drafting out of position of needs, what position would be 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th or 5th?
1st would be offensive line. 2nd would be corner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any faith in Vildor, and I don't think Jalen Johnson is as good as we make him out to be. I hope to be wrong. And personally, I would think if we're all about getting these 1-year contracts for right now as stopgaps, I don't know why we haven't called Kyle Fuller back.
Yeah,
he would flourish. Say it again.
He's out there.
Yeah, and he could flourish in a cover 2. I mean, and obviously he would do us well, I think. He would be better. He would instantly be the number 1 corner on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with Dan, man. I'm not the only one that thinks Jalen Johnson is a little bit overrated. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to see what the chat room says, but people are low. We don't hear his name called too often during the game, so I guess that's the best thing about it, right, Aldo?
Well, and I think part of that is because they throw to the other cornerback.
Right, they throw to the other cornerback. So, I mean, I'll have to watch more Jalen Johnson. Admittedly, I don't pay attention to him. But he's the best guy we got. Bottom line.
Mm-hmm. So Dan,
I would say safety's 3rd.
Safety is 3rd. That is interesting. You're putting that above wide receiver?
Yes, I am, because again, we still have Darnell Mooney, right?
Right.
We've got your friend with the suspended license.
Ringo.
Okay. I still think we could get something out of St. Brown. I mean, I'm not saying the wide receiver position isn't of need.
No,
don't get me wrong.
I hear you.
But I don't think Eddie Jackson's our best safety, right? And Eddie Jackson, in my opinion, isn't a very good safety.
I'm with you.
We let Deion Bush go. He was our best backup.
Mm-hmm.
I think the secondary and offensive line are the number 1 positions of need. Wide receiver is after that. I mean, to me, the only positions we should have on quote unquote lockdown right now would be the running back position, the quarterback position. And that's assuming Fields stays healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Simeon's the backup. I assume we're still trying to trade Nick Foles. I don't know, but I would think that linebacker, unless we trade Quinn, should be okay. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Why not bring back Akeem Hicks on a 1-year deal if he would take it and solidify your front 4 too? So,
man, I'm with Dan, Aldo.
Please,
you know how long I've been saying safety, we got to get stronger up the middle at safety and stuff. But I think maybe I know people in the chat room, Bears fans overall, are saying, hey, there's a lot of safeties out there in free agency that we could just pick up. We don't need to spend a draft pick on safety. But let me tell you one thing. There's one safety in here whose draft stock is plummeting right now. He ran a 4.7 something at his pro day. I'm talking about Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame, who's just an absolute stud during the season. If he's there at 39, you got to think pretty hard about drafting this guy, you know? I mean, nobody's taking a safety in the first round, I don't think, you know, but there's some good ones in the second round, man. Both Georgia safeties can play, man.
Yeah.
And Kyle Hamilton, you know, he's like got some size. He just had, you know, he just didn't run a good 40. But I mean, you put the tape on Hamilton, you know, he's a pretty darn good player, man.
Cliff Victoria makes a very good point. Hicks may be the difference between getting a third round compensatory pick. Got to keep that in mind. So, I mean, you know, do you want Akeem Hicks or a third round pick, you know, for, you know, if you're trying to win in 2022, then you want Hicks. But we're really in a rebuild. I'm sorry, Robert Quinn. Please don't hit me.
But Quinn is going to play defensive end. He's not going to play linebacker, though, right? He'll be on the defensive line.
Oh, yeah, he'll be defensive end, which is his natural position. So absolutely, he is. And I anticipate that this team, that he will get double-digit sacks again if he plays the entire season with the Chicago Bears. But I want to get back to Dan's thought about the safety position, because I too agree with you, Dan, and I had a little bit of a disagreement with Greg Gabriel about that, because I am of the school that, you know, sacks, and I'll have to do the analytics on this, but I think that sacks are just becoming harder to get in the NFL because of the rule changes that protect quarterbacks, because of the quick passing schemes teams are employing. It's hard to get a sack when the guy gets the snap, takes one step back, and then throws the fucking ball. You know, so how do you confront that? You confront it with defensive backs, cornerbacks, and safety who can play smart zone, play with anticipation when they're in that zone, or when they're asked to play man-to-man, are riding the hips of those wide receivers. I think that the new NFL is going to be paying much more attention to cornerbacks first, but also safeties and these hybrid safeties, guys that can come down and play from that center field position and then play that other linebacker position when you're sensing and smelling a run play. Yep. That to me, I mean, I'm always going to be, you know, old school in terms of building a team at the line of scrimmage first, but I think there should be a newfound appreciation for the importance of defensive back play in today's NFL when they're throwing the ball 80% of the time.
Nailed it. I mean, I think Greg Gabriel talked about that today, didn't he, on the show?
Yeah, he did. So
the player that you were describing, again, I mentioned it to Jim McMahon, is Todd Bell, the guy that can knock your fucking head off in the secondary, but also could come up and play linebacker. And by the time Todd got to Philly, Buddy just made him a straight up linebacker. So that's what I'm saying. But that's the kind of player that you're talking about. I completely agree. I mean, granted, you can't hit people the way Todd could back in his era, the late Todd Bell. But the point is, that's the kind of player we need. Right now, our best safety is very soft. And I hate to say that, but he is. Yeah. I mean, can he beat me in a fight? Maybe so. Maybe I'm softer than Eddie Jackson, but I'm not getting paid to play safety by the Chicago Bears. So he's not a tackler. He's not getting turnovers anymore. He doesn't seem to like any contact. He's the kind of boxer that's there for the payday and not trying to win the belt. You know, I mean, that's just, and I don't even know who the other starter is right now. Do we know?
No, I don't. I don't know. I don't think he's
Gibson's gone, right? Gibson has not been re-signed. Is that correct?
Right now it's Houston Carson, DeAndre Houston Carson.
Isn't he a free agent too?
No, he was signed.
No, we re-signed him back to the team.
Good. He's a solid player, the kind of guy you need on your team, whether that's special teams or a quality backup. And I kind of, you know, didn't want to see Deion Bush go. I don't think Deion Bush is a starter per se, but he's the guy, if he comes in, he's not going to, especially when Eddie Jackson's on the team, he's not going to be a huge fall off.
What do you guys think about what Adeptus is saying? He's saying that maybe, you know, you get a high level safety and that could unlock Eddie Jackson's sniping ability. I have to disagree with you, Adeptus. I think at this point, Eddie's value comes more from playing that center field safety position. But in today's NFL, every defensive coordinator wants to disguise who's playing that center field position, which is why we saw Eddie Jackson play in the box so many plays. They want these safeties to be interchangeable. It's even different from the Adrian Amos, Eddie Jackson days, where you almost reliably, not exclusively, but almost reliably, you had Eddie playing center field and Adrian playing the box. Now, again, I'm careful when I say that because I know Vic Fangio was a mastermind at disguising those calls and stuff, but it's still, I just think that Eddie Jackson doesn't fit an NFL defense anymore that wants to have that interchangeable safety. He has no interest at all playing anywhere near the box. He wants to play as high up the field as possible and get over to where the ball is thrown so he can come up with an interception. And that, I don't think that's going to work with this Bears defense. Now, Poles and Eberflus have been, waxing effusively about how attentive he's been at meetings and how, he's saying all.
But
he
skipped the mini camp.
He skipped the first day. He arrived the second day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know, but I'm with you 100%, Dan, that safety is being overlooked. And I hate that we don't get into camp like we did during the Ryan Pace era, where there was always at least one position that was severely under, not developed, but under, didn't have enough good players in it. Every fucking year, Ryan Pace reliably had his team always missing out, like being -0 at some position level. And I'm afraid that's going to happen simply because of Ryan Pace's mistakes and not building depth on this team. But we'll see.
We haven't had a great safety since Mike Brown.
Oh,
and Mike Brown was drafted 22 years
with the 39th pick.
Mm-hmm.
You had a great stat on that. Have you gone over that on air yet?
No, he hasn't.
No. The Bears have had the 39th pick in 4 of the last 8 drafts, including this one. So Eddie Goldman, 2015, James Daniels, 2018, and Tevin Jenkins in 2021, and of course Mike Brown in 2000.
Wow.
Was drafted 39th overall. Other guys are Mark Bradley and Marcus Spears. And you might remember
Mark Bradley in 05 looked like he was going to be something, and then he got hurt, I think, in Detroit.
Yeah.
And
it was never healthy.
Was never the same again, although Rex liked him. But, I mean, he never really he just kind of played sparingly after that.
Well, do you remember what happened? He was released, and then a week or 2 later, he was on the Kansas City roster, and he had like a big day, caught a touchdown pass at over 100 yards. Now, he never really did that again.
No.
He was who he was, but it was interesting. It felt like just we let another guy go, and he's playing really well. And
for a minute there, Bears fans were like, why did we let this guy go? Look, see, now he's good. Now he leaves us. Now he's good.
Yeah,
he was balling in 05, though, before he got hurt. He was playing really well. He was our number 1 wide receiver at that juncture. Mm-hmm. And after his injury, I think
Robbie makes a good point there, Aldo, on that one.
Well, hold on.
That's why it's called
Let's backtrack here.
Okay.
Dan, you were in the middle of a point.
I was just saying, after he got hurt, Bernard Berrien pretty much took his spot as our best wide receiver. But at the time, it looked like Bradley was going to be somebody significant. It's unfortunate how quickly that can turn on a guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then to your point too, Robbie does make a good point that in the traditional cover 2, there isn't a box safety, but they're not going to play the Lovie Smith cover 2. Greg Gabriel said today that when he last spoke with Chris Ballard, the GM with the Colts, he said he told Greg what Eberflus has done with the cover 2 is like a 3.3 class compared to what Lovie had, which was a 1.0. Lovie helped kind of he took that initial Tampa 2 defense and improved on it a little bit primarily because he had Urlacher who could play that almost cover 3.
That was my point.
But Eberflus now is disguising the cover two in many ways, and you may see the traditional cover two in Eberflus's defense only 20% of the time, if that. You're going to see a lot of nickel. You're going to see a lot of variations. So it's going to be interesting for people who love to study film and strategy to look at that. In fact, that's going to be one of the assignments I'm going to ask Danny to do during the offseason, is to take a look at the tape of the Colts defense to see if we can learn anything about that type of cover two. And also, I'm going to ask him to take a look at some of the Green Bay offense to see if we can learn anything about what Getsy might be doing with the Chicago Bears. And
that's a great point, Aldo. Do you know, or do you think, if I could ask a question, do the Bears have the linebackers to play the Eberflus's defense? I know with Roquan Smith for sure. Will Roquan Smith? That's the question. Will he play the will? Which is super important in this defense, or is he going to play the Mike? Right now, to me, I would think Roquan is going to will. And Nicholas Morrow is the guy they signed to drop back. The former safety is the guy is going to drop back in. Coverage, as like the Urlacher type that could, be up in the, because the middle linebacker is kind of the box safety in that defense that can drop back and cover, fill that middle zone with the two safeties over the top. But I don't know. Do you think we have a linebacker? The point I'm trying to make is linebacker might be a guy we go after in the draft as well. We don't even know.
We only have 6 draft picks. We need 12.
Yeah, we need 12. We need 12 every year.
That's right.
What do you all know about the Davenport guy? Not to change the topic back to the line, but we haven't touched on him. The Davenport gentleman that we signed from the Colts.
Julian Davenport, he's not going to really be a starter. To me, he's more of a camp body. He's there on an emergency basis. You still need to draft somebody. Davenport, in a pinch where guys are injured, you could probably throw him in there and hope that he's going to play well for a couple of games. But I don't really think that he's a remedy at all. He's a fairly reliable backup is my understanding of who he is. I remember when he came out in the draft, there was a lot of people who thought of him as a promising mid-round offensive lineman, which is where I think he was selected, but he really hasn't done anything of note that we should be thinking of. Well, he's a possible candidate for a starting job. No, he's a backup, and he's that. CJ Williams says Julian Davenport equals Willie Wright. I'm not sure who Willie Wright is, though. That's the problem. That's why
sounds bad, though, doesn't it?
Exactly. Willie Wilson would be different. Nicholas,
do you have like linebacker list like that, guys you would hope to fall?
No, I did not develop that list because I only did those 3 positions because I think those are the 3 highest of needs. But I could have done safety and I could have done linebacker because are also 2 other positions of huge needs for this team. I did do a list of just kind of special guys that I wouldn't mind if they were a member of the Bears, guys that I've kind of fallen in love and looking at tapes. That's a defensive lineman named Logan Hall. I mean, this guy could be that 3-tech defensive lineman. He could be like what's the name of the guy? Tooch, help me out here. Who's the 3-tech with the Colts? He ate the Bears quarterback in that last game that he played. Somebody in the chat will know.
DeForest Buckner.
Yes, that's him. No. He's DeForest Buckner. Is it? Oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Buckner was with San Francisco. Then
right. Didn't he go to Colts after that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It is Buckner. My bad.
Okay.
And so if he's available and the Bears pick him up, I think he's a guy who's got tremendous upside and can be a really disruptive agent in the defensive line. The second guy was tight end Trey Mcbride. Dan will love this guy if he comes to the Chicago Bears. And not only is he a better pass catcher than Cole Kmet, but this guy plays with a fucking attitude. He's the guy that's going to get up in your face and say, "Get your fucking hands off my quarterback. I'm here to protect him and catch touchdown passes from him." You would love Trey McBride. He would be
Dan's on board with that.
Yeah.
He doesn't like Cole Kmet.
No, he doesn't.
Well, I hope I'm wrong about Cole. I hope Cole and Justin have developed a rapport this offseason.
Yeah, me too. And then the third guy I had was Lewis Seen, the safety, who may not be available in the second round, but if he fell to either 39 or any one of those picks, you got to fucking consider it, man, because this guy is a baller at that safety position. So who knows? They might think Vildor and Thomas Graham and Jalen Johnson are three good starters, and they might fucking trick us and draft a safety in the second round. Wouldn't that be something? Wow, that would be huge.
I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It still helps the secondary. It still helps the secondary, and it's weak.
Right. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I think we're all stuck in that paradigm of wide receiver, cornerback, offensive lineman. I wouldn't be shocked if this guy just fucking surprises us. Wouldn't it be wild if with those 3 picks on day 2, we got Lewis signed the safety, Trey McBride, the tight end, and Logan Hall? I wouldn't advise that because we desperately need offensive line help. But who knows? We'll see. This is the fun of guessing and speculating and all that shit. All right, guys. Time to switch gears. What time is it? It's almost 10 o'clock.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. I know we wanted to talk about winning time. Tooch, did you watch the last episode?
That was great. It just gets better and better, man.
It really fucking does.
Yeah. I okay. I know it's like I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, and I'm sure Dan will agree with me, but it's like it's fantasy. It's like it's not. I don't believe for a second that this is what happened, but like the Jerry West talking to this talking statue, of himself. That was great.
Dan, you saw the episode, right?
Yeah, of course.
What were your thoughts about this episode? Do you think, like Tooch and I, that the episodes just get better and better, or were you a little disappointed?
Can we touch on the lawsuit stuff first?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. So this is the interesting part to me. As far as I know it, and I'm not an attorney, but as far as I recall, the precedent with the Supreme Court that set a standard that makes it more difficult for celebrities to sue and what have you was with Larry Flint, with Jerry Falwell with the lawsuit because Hustler was, publishing photos of suggesting that Jerry Falwell was fucking his mother in an outhouse. Mm-hmm. But the precedent of this was that if it's caricature and it's obviously not intended to be factual, then that's protected speech. But we're talking about a different thing. I'm not saying that Jerry West is going to win this lawsuit. He's demanding a retraction or at least something put on the screen to say, hey, this isn't really the way this guy was. And I don't blame him for doing so. But I don't know if this is presented as caricature. I think now I understand why they've been changing scores around and stuff like that so they can just hide and say, oh, it's not a documentary. See, it's just, well, hell, they didn't even play Boston in Boston first. We've been changing things around to make it fiction, but I think that's a cop-out. The story, for the most part, has been presented as if it were truth. And if you don't believe me, think about it. The first scene of the show was Magic getting diagnosed with HIV.
Right.
Which has nothing to do with this entire season. This season's going to end with them winning the championship in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So it has nothing to do with what's going to come in 1991. However, that nugget right there kind of gives you an impression that they're trying to sell this as truth. Mm-hmm. I'm not blaming Jeff Pearlman or anyone specific, but I think they are presenting it as being that this is as factual as we can make it. And for them to then run and hide and just say, oh, it's not a documentary. What I'm trying to say is if West is alleging that they have malice intent with his portrayal, because that's certainly not, it doesn't fall in the category of a caricature. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some legal legs to this. I'm not saying he's going to win any money, but maybe they have to acquiesce and just say on the screen a message that Jerry West does not agree with the way he's presented in this show or whatever. End of story. Go away. Having said all that, I do like the show. I think this week's episode was much better than last week. I am worried now that everything I see is a lie. I don't know if Jack McKinney came back that season and there was a power struggle and they decided to keep, because he wanted to fire Pat Riley and I don't know if any of this is true now, and that disappoints me in a lot of ways. I know that the way they've presented Larry Bird is completely out of step, and I not that I care. I'm not a Bird fan, but I did want more from the show, in the sense that, like, don't just exaggerate characters just because you think it's more creative. So I think in those aspects, knowing that they're not even trying to tell the truth in some instances is hurting the show for me, but I do like it. I enjoyed it, but I don't necessarily think it's as great as I did initially, because I thought they were trying to be factually correct. So that does bother me. But again, the legal stuff I think is interesting. I'd like to see how this plays out if it ends up going to court.
What do you think, Tooch?
Well, yeah, I mean, Dan's right. I mean, for me, I've thrown reality out the window with this, because you kind of have to if you're going to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, who doesn't like Jeannie Buss throwing up after imagining her father motorboating some titties? Right? Danny, are you with me?
I'm sorry. I was getting a drink of water. What did you say? I apologize. I had my headset down for 10 seconds. I swear.
I said, I thought you'd get a kick out of Jeannie Buss throwing up after imagining her dad motorboating some titties.
Yeah. And she thought that I don't know if this is even true, but the lady was trying to help his mom, Sally Field's character. He was offering to help pay her through school. At the time, it was a completely nice gesture. It wasn't like he's like, well, if you suck my dick, but then I guess it does show him sucking her titties in the car. So I don't know what it means, but yeah, that was funny to see her vomit thinking her dad was fucking.
Well, let me offer this, because I was actually, HBO put out an announcement today. They have a statement that reads in part, HBO has a long history of producing compelling content drawn from actual facts and events that are fictionalized in part for dramatic purposes. Winning Time is not a documentary and has not been presented as such. However, the series and its depictions are based on extensive factual research and reliable sourcing, and HBO stands resolutely behind our talented creators and cast who have brought a dramatization of this epic chapter in basketball history to the screen.
They're talking out both sides of their mouth.
No, hold on. Let me finish my point.
Okay, go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
Let me finish my point. So,
sure, I'm sorry.
I think that they are correct, because even before they put out that statement, I did some research, and Jerry West had written an autobiography named West by West, My Charmed Torture Life, which talks about his battles with depression that began when his father used to beat the shit out of him. Talked about his depression when he would win championships and be dejected at the end, wondering, is that all there is to this? I expect it to be happier. I expect it to be. So I'm not saying that Jerry West threw his trophy through the window, but those are creative ways to provide symbols through what was going on with Jerry West. And this week's episode was, to me, Jerry West was put on a fucking mountain. He went into Magic Johnson's locker room and talked to him after Dr. J embarrassed the shit out of him and told him, you have got to stop being one to be liked by everybody and go out there and beat the shit out of your fucking opponent. He offered him a life lesson, something that Michael Jordan was built with in his DNA. He offered that to Magic Johnson. And therefore, that's going to be one of the critical points of this series that's going to propel the Lakers to a championship. Who knows if Jerry West actually made that speech to Magic Johnson? But it again kind of is emblematic of Jerry West's leadership on that team, even though he wasn't a part of the coaching staff. Even though he was just kind of an advisor and not much more than that. So
I love that part, Aldo.
Yeah, that was a great fucking scene.
It was a great part. Yep.
So I'm sorry, Dan. Please go ahead with your thoughts.
I thought their statement was duplicitous. It's talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're saying, "Oh, but this is not a documentary," and I forget the exact wording, but we can dramatize but essentially then they're coming out and saying, but no, it is based on fact. But at the beginning of the statement, it's not based on fact. It's not a documentary. Mm-hmm. It's like they're trying to have it both ways in that regard. And again, I'm not saying I have no reason to sit here and defend Jerry West. I don't know anything about Jerry West other than he was from my state and that he's the logo and that he was a great player. That's all I know. And I knew he was an executive. That's what I knew him as my entire life. So I have no built-in propensity to feel sorry for Jerry West. I'm just saying Kareem, for example, has been watching, and Kareem came up and said that he thought that it was completely an abortion, the way that's not a quote, but he said it's just terrible the way he projected. Yeah, did he suffer from depression? Of course, but he wasn't a raving lunatic screaming fuck constantly and always drunk and shit like that. I think that's the portrayal that's so offensive to him. And if I were Paul Westhead, Jesus Christ, the way they make him sit around and say, I don't think I can do it, and Riley has to throw him in a shower and turn the water. They make him look like an impotent fucking cock. So if that's just completely made up, then shit like that really hurts the story, in my opinion, because they think it's funny or whatever, or it's entertaining the boys that they're writing for. But you're talking about people's lives and people's legacies. So if you're going to just make it because you think it's fucking suits your screenplay to demean people, then you can't present it as, but it's so researched and based on fact.
I can see what Danny's saying, Aldo, because there's some, it's highly dramatized. Like the West
credit sequence it says that, right?
Yeah. I mean, and then HBO did kind of double down, like Dan says. They kind of doubled down a little bit on it, protecting their their creative staff. But with the West portrayal, we're taking it as over the top. I mean, some of this episode was almost like high drama with when McKinney comes back and he's like all of a sudden he's like this evil overseer. It's like,
yeah, right.
he hears like Pat Riley saying other things on the TV. He's like, fuck you, you Irish shantytown motherfucker. He's like, stuff like that. I'm enjoying it because of the campiness too, because I mean, it's presented as sort of this 80s camp, campy 80s style.
I agree with that. Yeah. I do think that I agree with a lot of what Dan's saying, and too.
Yeah, so do I.
I agree with you. It has always been. Now, I went to film school at Columbia College here in Chicago, and I took a class on that whole topic: should filmmakers be faithful to the books that they're adapting their screenplays from? Should they be faithful to true life events? And I think the consensus for most of the students at the end of the 10-week course was, it's your fucking movie. You do whatever, as long as you're within the legal limits, and you're not slandering anybody or anything like that. You can do whatever you want with the material. If you have the legal rights to do it, you can do whatever you want. And so, go ahead, Dan.
My rebuttal to that is, and I'm not disagreeing with you. Let's just take Oliver Stone, for example.
Perfect
who
example.
wrote the Doors movie. There were so many exceptions taken by members of the actual band on events portrayed in the film that they said, were just complete lunacy, didn't happen. But Oliver Stone never presented that as fact. He didn't hide when he was Now, again, completely different about JFK because Oliver does believe that stuff is true, whether people disagree or not. But what I'm saying is with The Doors is a better example because he openly admits it's his screenplay that he was the creator and dramatized those events. He says that from the top, even when he's marketing the film. Granted, it's almost been it has been 30 years ago now, but he never said it was otherwise. But again, if you go back to HBO's statement, they're like, oh, no, we stand by the facts. And it's like, again, they're implying that this stuff is true. That's the difference to me. I don't think that a filmmaker should necessarily have to, like you said, have to do everything straight down the line because that would be boring in some instances. But I think the thing with this is that they are presenting it as fact and then running and hiding and saying they're not, but then also saying they are. So I think that's the difference. Like if someone like Stone will come out and tell you, no, I wrote that screenplay. A lot of that's historical fiction, but the show's not saying that. And I think that that's the exception to that exact rule there, in my opinion, which is only an opinion. It doesn't make it right.
That's all
Do you think they should offer a disclaimer at the beginning, Danny?
Well, but they do. What Jerry West wants is like an apology. We apologize to Jerry West because we've dramatized his events, his personal life to the point where we've made him, angry. Fuck that, man. I'm sorry. When you choose to live your life publicly,
but I think he can argue there's malice there. I'm not saying he's going to win, but legally, that if he can prove malice, they would have to pay damages. That would be a form of libel. So I think that that's his thing, is that he's saying that they have maliciously written this about him to slander him. Now, if that's true, then, I'm not saying it is, but it's interesting because their statements sort of contradict themselves, and I don't know what the court would say if it went to it. I don't know, but I honestly think that Jerry would be happy if they just said on the final episode that he's taken exception of the way his character was portrayed on this, blah, blah, blah. And for that, we're sorry, whatever. We never meant to offend him. Whatever. I'm not the public relations firm here,
No, I know. I don't think this is ever going to get close to a courtroom. I don't think that Jerry West wants to be questioned about what he wrote in his autobiography about thoughts of committing suicide, because that's what he wrote in those books. He doesn't.
But he was depressed. That doesn't mean he's an alcoholic and screaming constantly and things like that.
Right. Well, that is true. That is true. And I'm not.
They're mocking his mental illness in some regard, because if you believe depression is a mental ailment that a lot of people take drugs for suppress.
I certainly do. And I don't know, man, that's a great thing to debate right there. Were they mocking his mental illness, or were they just kind of presenting it in an amplified way for dramatic purposes? That's a tough one, man. That's a tough.
I think the latter.
See both sides.
Yeah. You could see both sides, but I think more towards the latter. But although, do you think Winning Time is a show that you kind of have to make the decision to say?
Cliff Victoria says, always remember, 50% of people are dumber than average. That's Cliff. I used to have a teacher in high school.
Just wait till you hear what I'm about to say next, Cliff.
Go right ahead.
Do you think Winning Time is a show where you kind of have to make the decision of, I'm either going to enjoy the show, or I'm not going to enjoy it. And if I want to enjoy it, if I'm going to invest time in watching it, so I've got to turn off, part of my brain that says, this is not realistic. This isn't what happened or anything like that or whatever. And just kind of like maybe go with the flow of the, the stylistic dramatization and kind of enjoy it for what it is, and not because I think that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good question for Dan, because Dan, after the first couple of episodes, he was in love with this show.
But I still like the show.
But do you feel?
I took exception to when they were changing the scores and stuff around, and the events of how things played out. Like if Cooper didn't hit the winning shot in this game, you can't say he did, in my opinion. So to me, those, like I said earlier, I feel like they're doing little things like that is just a way to hide the stuff that they're doing with Jerry West or Paul Westhead. Like to say, see, we changed the scores around, so it's all fiction.
Yeah, I don't think they did that.
It's not a documentary because we've changed other things too. I like the show and I'm going to watch it the next 2 episodes, and I'm going to watch season 2 when it starts, whenever that is. But it has lost a little bit of its luster with me, knowing that just that statement. It's just so all over the place.
I don't know.
It's like you're having your cake and eating it too, to use that cliche.
HBO has a long history of producing compelling content drawn from actual facts and events that are fictionalized in part for dramatic purposes.
Yeah, but continue on toward the end when he's like, but we know this is based on facts and we believe in our sources.
However, the series and its depictions are based on extensive factual research and reliable sourcing, and HBO stands resolutely behind our talented creators and cast who have brought a dramatization of this epic chapter. I don't have a problem with.
I feel like that's contradictory. I think they're saying 2 different things there.
I don't know, man.
Did William Shakespeare dramatize actual events though too? Although,
well,
right?
you look at any movie,
hundreds of years.
Any Hollywood movie that is based on real life is dramatized to some degree, and most of them to high degree. It's like, I think I said it this in last week's show. Remember the Titans movie with Denzel Washington and Will Patton? The players from that era say, there weren't that many racial issues like it was depicted in the movie, but we enjoyed it. So
that doesn't bother me so much, because they're talking to, there's numerous fake white people who are the bigots in the show versus, again, a real man who had a real legacy. And again, no one's even asked Paul Westhead, is he still alive? I think he is.
Yeah, I believe he is.
Yeah, I mean, God, they've made him look just absolutely awful.
Yeah. And
then suddenly you skipped ahead in time and suddenly they're like 40 games later in the schedule. God, they just, for me, if the Westhead thing isn't true, the Jerry West thing isn't true, then it's like, why are they picking on these 2 guys? I guess it made the people in the writing room laugh or something. And it's just like, oh, but so Aldo and I wrote the screenplay and we think it's funny, but this is real people who had real lives and real legacies that you're affecting here,
Yeah, I hear you. There's a certain sensitivity to that. Absolutely. And you're going to hate this even more. Both of you guys listen to this. The question is, did Paul Westhead and Jack McKinney have a falling out? You'll be shocked to hear this, according to silverscreenandroll.com. You'll be shocked to hear that, as far as we can tell, based on public information, none of that happened. There is no record of Westhead having kidney stones that forced him out of the game this season, and there is no record of Pat Riley being the interim head coach for a game in Philadelphia.
Jesus. See, that really hurts the show to me. That really hurts the show. I mean, it's just, they're mixing in so many facts to hide it, but some of this is just utter dog shit. Like I didn't know that wasn't true, but now knowing that wasn't true, it's just like the audacity to just make that up. I mean, it's just fuck.
And it's still a good show.
Hey, if they were going to make a movie about Dan, Aldo, and Tooch, I would give them the creative license to do whatever they want. Draw me up as a character with the biggest dick in the world. Draw me up as a character.
What if they said every night on all your shows, before you turn the mic on, you sucked a stranger's dick just because they thought that was funny? Aldo every night blew a stranger before he turned on the mic. If it was 8:00 in the morning Central Time with Mike North, or goddamn it, it's midnight with Dan Aguirre, he was just blowing a guy before they turned the mic on. He'd be like, "What?"
Point me to who wrote that shit. Point me to him.
You can just say whatever you want. Is my point. I used an extreme example, but it feels like they're just saying whatever they want about anything. And to me, if I'm writing this show, I'm arguing, you got to stick at least with the fundamentals. You have to stick with the fundamental truth. I get if you're condensing 3 events into one conversation or something to that effect, And maybe even making up a party that Magic went to see Dr. J. Okay. You know, I get it. They went to dinner. We don't know what was really said. I have no problems with them, you know, speculating what the dialogue may have been. But when you're changing the outcomes of games and people's entire personalities just because, that affects the show to me.
Yeah, I think you're making a compelling argument.
Yeah, I agree too. But Danny, doesn't this great cast kind of make it like it's so enjoyable? I mean, the cast is fantastic. You know, the guy who plays Magic.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if we were on the writing team, these are things I'd be saying, come on, guys, man, we can't.
Okay.
I know it's funny to portray Westhead as this impotent fucking, I have no belief in myself kind of guy, but if the guy's coached for 30 fucking years after this, so if that were true, he would have never made it. He'd have never won an NBA championship if he was just some weak ass guy like that, you know? So things like that bother me. It's like, are they doing it to appease themselves? Do they think it's funny?
Well,
You know,
it's Adam.
why are they
It's
taking the
Adam
shot?
McKay, right? And I'm not a big follower of Adam McKay movies, but as Tooch said, I think a week ago, this guy has done the Talladega movies, a lot of Will Ferrell movies. So he's got that kind of sense of humor.
Step Brothers with
Which explains why John C. Reilly's in it.
Right. He John C. Reilly is his actor. You know, his one of the guys that's in a lot of his movies.
And you got to admit, you know, he's
done well. He's done well.
He's great in that role. Whether
I
it's true
agree.
or not.
I just
probably my favorite character, Jerry Buss.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, it is interesting that if I had known more about Adam McKay before the series, I would have gone into this with a different outlook. Okay, he's kind of a broad comedy filmmaker. He's made these Will Ferrell movies and so forth. Then I would have had a feeling that I kind of get where I'm going on this. Who was it? Didn't he have a disagreement with somebody about this TV series, and they parted regarding creative differences? I'll do the research.
Maybe one of his directors, you know.
Yeah,
not all the episodes were directed by Adam McKay. They have other directors, but
let's flip this around just for a moment. And it's a hypothetical, but just follow me on it. Even I know, Aldo, you're a little bit older than me, or Tuch is as well. But I mean, this topic, the 1980 season was 40 fucking years ago. So even if you were watching the NBA then, and I presume that you were, you may not remember all these specifics to be able to contradict it. But let's say the next guy
on TV though
wants to dramatize the Bulls when it's something that you remember so vividly because it meant so much to you, and it's got like just holes and holes and holes filled with inaccuracies. I mean, wouldn't that piss you off? I think if we were Laker fans that remembered the 79-80 season the way we do the 85 Bears, we would just be fucking infuriated with this.
That's a very, very valid argument. And I would be pissed off, but I think that I would have an understanding about these kinds of rules of fiction filmmaking. You know, the Last Dance was where you should go for more accuracy.
But not if you listen to Horace or Scottie Pippen.
Well, yeah, that's a great point, because a documentary is always about how somebody looks at things from their lens. You know, it's not actually true. It is true for them, but it may be untrue for somebody else. So it's very, very difficult to get accuracy, 100% accuracy on any type of reporting.
Although you're totally right. History is different for every person.
There you go. Well, somebody else said that, right? Are you quoting somebody there?
No.
By the way, that split Adam McKay had was with Will Ferrell, and the dispute was a creative. Their whole creative partnership dissolved because the creative differences over another movie that they're working on, not this particular.
We know how much Dan loves Will Ferrell too.
I did like him on SNL. I just don't like his movies. The same thing with Adam Sandler. I like Sandler on SNL. I liked Chris Farley on SNL. I just didn't like either one of their movies.
Yeah, I think part of it, I'm kind of with Dan on this one, is that these guys are funny in their 5-minute skits, but over a 100-minute movie, sometimes it can be a little tougher to carry out. Now, I will say this, no choice of my own. I've had to watch a few Adam Sandler movies of his broad comedies, and I sat through them and I said to myself, you know what, this is actually better than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I have, that Jerry Lewis broad comedy that other contemporary actors have brought, and comparing Adam Sandler and Jerry Lewis is probably not accurate. But that kind of comedy to me isn't as appealing in feature film length.
Yeah.
Anyway,
here goes your fun fact, Aldo.
Fun fact?
When I was a kid, fun fact, when I was a kid, I was a phone operator for the Jerry Lewis telethon.
Is that right?
Swear to God. And I was like 10 or 11 years old because my mom was doing it. So
yeah,
I answered because I sounded older even though when I was younger.
So
you know what I mean? My voice was already pretty deep for a kid, so they let me do it too.
That's wild. So you were in the studio, not the New York studio with Jerry Lewis and stuff, but you were in a local studio in Virginia.
West Virginia. But like I don't know how they routed the calls, but yeah, we would take your info of like, okay, you're Aldo Gandia, you're in Illinois, you pledged $500. Here's your credit card info, or your checking, your routing number, however you did it. And yeah, we filled out the paperwork. We thanked you. And that was that. We just moved on, took the next call.
That is awesome. I did
that for like 2 or 3 years.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to, and I would dare myself, I should call and make a fake contribution, using a fake name, like, hi, my name is Wilma. My last name is Dickfit. Wilma Dickfit. and I pledged $10,000. I always wanted to do that, but didn't have the guts to do it.
That sounds like a Howard Stern bit all day, though.
By the way, speaking of Howard Stern, people in the chat room have been talking about the Johnny Depp Amber, what's her last name?
Amber Heard.
Amber Heard situation.
She shit in his bed.
She shit in his bed. Good for her. Howard Stern is not buying Johnny Depp, saying that Johnny Depp is behaving as a narcissist, and compared him to Donald Trump, saying that he wanted this trial to be videotaped because he wanted to convince America that he is innocent and that he's really a good guy and that he's overacting, and it's easy to see that he's full of shit. Did you guys hear that? So what are your thoughts?
I didn't listen to Stern because I didn't know he did a show today. I feel like if we go back to January, Howard's probably worked 10 days. So I'm probably going to cancel Sirius. And when my 1-year deal, because I get it for like $9.99 a month for 1 year.
Right.
Because he fucking never works.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to me, again, I like Stern, but if you're going to come after Johnny Depp, how about going after yourself for the terrible shit you said to Magic Johnson?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
There's no addressing that, is there, Howard?
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of his
more black than he is. I mean, come on, man.
That was a lot of the stuff that was on social media saying that's the pot calling the kettle black, or whatever that expression is. Howard calling somebody a narcissist. It's like, Tooch, I'm sorry, I interrupted what you were saying.
She chopped off part of his finger.
Oh, she really did that?
Johnny Depp, yeah, there's like photos of it with like half of his finger tip gone, like through the side.
God. Yeah. I think everybody agrees that both of them are miserable people.
So can I ask you and Dan a question?
Manson got brought up?
No.
Yeah, they brought up Manson because she was talking about all the cocaine he was doing with Manson.
Oh, you sent that to me, Dan. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, he joked and said, yeah, one time I gave Manson a pill just so he would stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny. But maybe he is playing to the cameras. I can't dispute that, but he's been passionate for years that he wasn't abusive and stuff. And if he wasn't, then good for him to try to clear his name, because he did lose I don't like those movies, the Pirates of the Caribbean, but he did get fired from those. She did effectively ruin his career just with an accusation, which I still think is scary for me as a male, that anyone can say what they want and you're just fucking guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he's guilty, then, he should lose all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But who's to say if he is or not? So I support his. If he's passionate trying to clear his name, I support at least him having the forum to do it.
There you go.
Now, if they still rule for her, then that's something different entirely. But I support him having the means to at least to protect himself and say this isn't true.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Nagishi, I think, is referring to the movie Tooch you've been recommending. He said, Stephen writes, I saw a Nicolas Cage movie over the weekend. Very good film. It was like watching a movie within a movie.
I haven't seen it yet. Is it that one where he's the winning talent or something like that?
Okay. So it wasn't the one that you've been recommending for months here is Pig, right?
Pig is great, but it's not like a movie inside a movie though. But that's what I was thinking. It's like is it Channing Tatum and Nicolas Cage or so? I can't forget his
I
movie.
think I've heard of that.
It's at the theater. It just started today.
That's where Nicolas Cage is playing Nick Cage, right?
Right. Yeah.
The character's name is Nick Cage.
Yeah. Massive talent.
Massive talent.
Yeah,
Boy, I
really
really loved the movie he was in with Meryl Streep. What the fuck was the name of that? Where he plays a screenwriter with a twin brother.
Oh, it's Adaptation.
Adaptation. I really like that.
Solid movie. Solid movie.
Loved it, man. Loved it. A lot of people hated that movie. I would recommend it to people. Why the fuck did you recommend that movie to me? Adaptation, yes. Because it's out there. It's weird. It's different. And I really loved it. I'm dying to see it for a second time. But, sometimes this ever happened to you guys? You watch a great movie and you're kind of afraid to watch it a second time because you got a feeling it's not going to feel as good the second time. You guys ever get that feeling?
Yeah, some movies, go back to.
For me, it's a little bit different. It'll be something I really like, but I'm like, I could see no one else enjoying it, so I won't say anything.
Yeah, there's movies like Life is Beautiful, the Italian film that won Best Picture. And I saw that in a movie theater in Miami. I cried. It was so good and so forth. But anytime it's on, I go nowhere near it because
nowhere.
Now a movie like Terminator 2, I think I've watched Terminator 2 or at least portions of it over 100 times because anytime it's on, I'm going to stop and watch it. Because the filmmaking there, the James Cameron filmmaking, the performances, the propulsion. It's like drinking some really good coffee watching that movie. I love that film.
Did you ever see like the Blu-ray version where they had cut scenes for T2?
No.
There's one scene that I thought they should have left in the film, but I know it's 2.5 hours or whatever anyway. Mm-hmm. But one of the scenes that I liked a lot, where you remember his name's like Michael Biehn, or is it Biehn, who played the hero of the first film, Protecting Linda Hamilton?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Michael Biehn.
Cutaway scene where she has like an hallucination of him talking to her in the second film.
Oh,
that I thought was really cool. If you like, Kyle Reese was his name in the film.
Yes.
Where she's struggling for confidence and she gets it from Kyle. Whom she still supposedly loves, even though he died, because he's the father of her child, and he saved her. So I thought that, and it was really him. It was the same actor. I thought that was a scene that should have been left in. But yeah, Terminator 2 is a fantastic movie. The first one, equally great in a completely different way. They're both super films. And I think because of his accent, a lot of people, or even his politics, they kind of denigrate Arnold's acting, and that's too bad, because a guy that couldn't speak English when he came to America, coming the top paid actor in the fucking world for like a decade is extremely impressive. And I think he really earned that. Like, he's got a lot of movies on the fringe like that, like The Sixth Day. Did you ever see that?
That one I
about
have not
cloning
seen. That one I have not seen.
Oh man, did you like Total Recall?
Loved it.
It's sort of similar in that it's sci-fi, but not like, welcome to this planet, like Star Trek or whatever. It's, again, the whole idea is it's supposed to be right when like an animal got cloned in America in circa 97. So the film goes to, quote, like the near future, and they have the capabilities of human cloning. And at one point, Arnold's character is cloned, but he doesn't know he's the clone. It's rated R. It's sci-fi. If you like Total Recall, you'd like The Sixth Day.
Is it based on a Philip K. Dick book, the author of Total Recall?
No, I'm just comparing it in terms of the genre.
Yeah, but it does feel like a Philip K. Dick type story, you know, where reality is fucked with. You don't know if this is really you or you're a clone or shit like that. That's
right. It's very. Yeah, I think, in Total Recall, there were some elements of that too, like where he didn't know which. Yeah, so it's very similar, and they're both the same genre. Maybe they are by the same author. I don't know, but again, it's one of those obscure movies from 2000 that I think a lot of people forgot about that I highly recommend, especially if you like Total Recall.
Ravi says it is based on a Philip K. Dick book. Philip K. Dick was a prolific science fiction writer who would drop acid, do LSD as he was writing his stories, and he came up with superlative works. Blade Runner is based on one of his books, Total Recall, a bunch of other stuff. I've read a couple of his books when I was younger, and yeah, it felt like an acid trip. There's no doubt about it. Hey, Tooch, you saw the question up there that was on there earlier. What are your preference, Terminator 1 or Terminator 2?
Man, they're both great.
They really are.
It's hard to, there wouldn't be a 2 without a 1.
That's right.
2 is awesome too, man. It's just, that was what, Edward Furlong?
Edward Furlong was the kid,
right.
Yes.
Whatever happened to him? It's like
Edward got on drugs pretty badly.
Really bad, yeah.
He was on. I always liked Pet Sematary 2, and he was the star of that along with Anthony Edwards, who was going on ER at the time, so was becoming a star himself. But yeah, Pet Sematary 2, to me, it was a great horror film from 1992, and they did like the 30th anniversary or what have you on Blu-ray recently. And I bought it and I watched the bonus features with him. It's sad, man. He's so burned out. He looks terrible.
Yeah, it's awful.
I mean, it's like it looks so bad that I wouldn't be surprised. Not saying he did. Whatever they paid, whatever Shout Factory paid him, I wouldn't be surprised if it went straight to a dealer.
Yeah, man, that's so sad.
It is, man. He looked bad. It's sad.
Man, I had a point to make about fucking Schwarzenegger, who I agree with you, Dan, a underappreciated actor. I think, guys like...
He had range. He had a lot of range. Like Kindergarten Cop, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people think that if you can't do the master thespian, Shakespearean stuff, that you're not a good actor. But guess what? Charlie Chaplin couldn't do that. Buster Keaton couldn't do that. Those guys are great physical actors. They are great storytellers. Same thing with Tom Cruise and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Those guys make great pictures, and they are perfectly suited for the roles. And I'm in the camp that Tom Cruise is also an undervalued actor. He has a little bit more range, I think. Well, maybe not. I don't know if Tom Cruise can pull off a comedy like Kindergarten Cop, like Schwarzenegger. Or Twins. I don't know if he could do that. So, but
what about the one he had with Sinbad where they're fighting over the toy, the Christmas toy?
Yeah, that one, I don't think I saw that one.
I didn't like it either, but for the audience it's directed to, it's great. For kids,
Yeah.
Jingle All the Way, I think is what it's called.
Jingle All the Way.
He had the movie where he was a pregnant man. I didn't like it, but it shows range.
Yes.
And then you've got the straight up, got a sword, Conan bullshit that I didn't like either, or Red Sonja.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the Predator and the Running Man and the Terminator. I mean, this dude's got great fucking films.
Fucking Ravi is an expert on Arnold's movies. He's got all the titles just as you're saying them. He's beating you to the punch by a millisecond. Ravi, well done. And he says Arnold has charisma, and he certainly does that. Did you guys ever see the documentary, the weightlifting documentary that he did?
I did not.
Oh my gosh, it is so fucking good. I had not watched it for years, and about 4 or 5 years ago, my buddy Steve said, "Oh, you haven't watched it?" He loaned it to me. I took a look at it, and it was so fucking good. A great documentary about the weightlifting business, and you could tell then that this guy had the camera fucking loved him. It wasn't just the muscles, that they had that charisma, like Aravi is saying in the chat. Really, really a great guy. Don't always agree with his politics, but I do agree with him now that he's been critical of
he hates Trump.
Oh my God!
Hey, you know who he's? I got to go on this one, but it'll be a good mic drop for me, Aldo. He's his favorite president ever is Nixon. Swear to God, he's got photos with him. He's starstruck by Nixon.
As you are.
He said Nixon was like, when he first came to America. This is Arnold's story. I'm not making it up. He said that he had just come from a communist country and was under oppression, and it was a miracle for him to get here, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he heard this politician speaking, and he said, "Who is this guy?" They said, "His name's Richard Nixon." And they said, "Well, which party does he belong to?" He said, "Well, he's a Republican." He said, "So I'm a Republican too, because I agree with everything he's saying." That's what Arnold's saying. I'm not saying I agree with everything he's saying, but I'm saying that's what Arnold's impression in 1968 was of Richard Nixon when he first came to America.
Well, that's a perfect way for you to do the mic drop and go save some lives, buddy.
Hey, I'm mailing your discs in the morning, so I'm hoping tomorrow being Wednesday that maybe Friday you'll have them, and hopefully you all can watch by the weekend.
Well, with the draft this weekend, I'm going to be super busy, but trust me, my wife and I are anxious to. Dan is sending me over a bunch of JFK conspiracy documentaries and stuff. So my wife and I already have circled some dates where we can do the binge on that.
And don't sleep on the 85 movie too. It's solid, man. It's better than the 30 for 30 the ESPN did, in my opinion.
Okay.
Has Dan ever seen From JFK to 9/11?
I have not.
No, if you like the conspiracy JFK stuff, it's like the whole history of it. It's done by an Irish guy, did a documentary. It was great. It won like best documentary. I don't know if it was Oscar, but it won best documentary. I don't know which award it won. But From JFK to 9/11, the true history of that's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I got to go. I'll just quickly run down what I'm sending him. Rush to Judgment, which Oswald's mother hired Mark Lane as an attorney to represent him with the Warren Commission, but of course they changed their mind and wouldn't allow him to get legal representation for obvious reasons, because they're framing a guy. But anyway, so he then was going to take this and make it into a book, but he recorded all of his interviews with people while he was writing the book. So 2 years later, they then turned that into a movie as a companion piece for the book, which is called Rush to Judgment. So, and it's got all these people's vivid accounts because he recorded them in 64. Even though the movie came out in 66, the book's from 64, the interviews are from 64, like 2-3 months after the assassination. So everything's so vivid with the people there on scene at the time. We're not talking about the 40th anniversary or something, So I got that. I've got the Jim Garrison tapes, which is a complete extensive breakdown of Jim Garrison versus the JFK movie and things like that. Phenomenal. 4-part or 4 DVD set called Evidence of Revision, which is going to focus on the Kennedy assassination through LBJ in Vietnam, through RFK getting shot and Dr. King being shot. And then the 9-part series of The Men Who Killed Kennedy, which aired on the History Channel. And then finally that 85, because I already had the Blu-ray, but my friend bought me the DVD not knowing I already had it. So it's never even been opened.
Awesome.
Because I've got the Blu-ray, so it's just been sitting there.
Well, I'll be opening up a few days after I receive it. Thank you, my friend Dan Aguirre, headed to his other job where he's going to save some lives. Hopefully you have a nice slow night, brother.
That'd be great. You all take care.
Love you, man. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Danny. Yeah,
by the way,
documentary I was trying to remember the name is JFK to 9/11. Everything is a Rich Man's Trick by Francis Richard Connolly. Is excellent, man. He said his theory is that everything is the trick of the wealthy elite tricking the masses. It's fascinating.
I love that theory because I think there's already some truth to that with what we're seeing.
Lots of truth. But
by the way, I wanted to ask you this because only because Tin Pan Dog brought it up. Die Hard, he says, is the greatest Christmas movie. What's your feeling on? First of all, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I don't know. Is it? Does it take place at Christmas?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I guess.
Does that make it a Christmas movie? I say no.
I don't know. You could say yes, you could say no. I don't know, but I don't know if it's the greatest Christmas movie, though. I mean, I can think of.
I'm biased on this.
Yeah, so am I.
I feel like a Christmas movie is something that I can sit down and watch with my family.
Yeah.
And there are so many fucking shootings and deaths in Die Hard. It's a great movie. I fucking love it. I love the first 2 or 3 Die Hard movies. They're fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
By the way, I saw a Comedy Central roast.
But I'm not watching it on Christmas.
Yeah, right.
No,
right away. Eh? It's like you got 2 daughters, and you're not gonna say, "Hey, come on, girls, let's watch Die Hard." It's a Christmas movie.
Slot that in around December 20th for me.
Exactly.
For me, like when I think of Christmas movies that I'm going to watch with my family, I'm thinking It's a Wonderful Life. I'm thinking A Christmas Story.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So I mean, that's like what every year my family watches. It's a Wonderful Life. You know, that's Christmas tradition. And I got A Christmas Story. So
yeah, I just feel like, Christmas to me is about sharing, giving rather than receiving. It's about being kind-hearted and
family.
Stuff. It's hard to find those themes in Die Hard. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm in a minority. Look at Tin Dog and say, "Come on, Aldo. Come on, Tin." I know. We'll have to have you on so we can debate that one day.
I have been watching some stuff, although I got to tell you, I was like, I finally saw the Best Picture winner, which people probably don't even know what the Best Picture was.
Yeah, I'm forgetting. Yeah, because
right. I looked at this movie and I'm like, I don't know if I'd be interested in watching this.
What's the name of it again?
It's called Coda, Child of Deaf Adults.
Right.
And every time I was like, God, do I really want to watch this? I don't even know if I'm gonna like it. I don't know what it's about really and stuff. Last night, my wife and I decided to watch it, and it's fucking killer, dude. It's so good. It's an excellent movie. It's one of those movies that it's one of those movies that where those movies that you can cry in but still be happy.
Yeah, sure.
Those are the movies that usually win.
Yeah.
They're like life affirming, they're family centric, and man, I was crying like a whore in church. At the end of it, at the end of it, it's really good, man. I'm telling you, it's about it's about this family. And three of the family members are deaf, and the youngest of the family, the daughter, she's a hearing. She can hear. She's perfectly normal, and she's basically like their link to the speaking world. Otherwise they're just like they're lost. And man, I don't want to give too much away, Aldo, because it is so good. It's full of music too. It has great soul music, man. There's like Marvin Gaye and Etta James, because the girl, her passion is singing. Of course, her family can't enjoy her singing because they can't hear. And it's bittersweet. And every day this girl gets up at 3 a.m. She goes out on the fishing boat with her dad and her brother, and she helps them, catch the day's fish. They're Gloucester fishermen, Massachusetts. And she has other dreams. She wants to be a singer, and she joins this high school choir where she has this fantastic teacher. I don't know the actor's name, but anyways, the mother is played by Marlee Matlin, who you remember, I think, won an Academy Award for Children of a Lesser God.
Absolutely.
With the late William Hurt.
Yep.
Right. And the father's an actor I don't know, but he was fucking hilarious. They're hilarious. They're kind of like they love each other so much, the husband and the wife. They're constantly hot for each other, which I think is hilarious. And then the son, he's the older brother, and he can't hear either. And there's a lot of signing and stuff. But they're really funny, man. When they are signing, they constantly play jokes on each other and stuff. It's really funny, man. It's very touching. And she wants to be a singer, and she's not sure of, and she finds this teacher in high school. He kind of like helps her grow up to be, for coming of age. Man, you gotta see it, man. It's happy, it's sad. I don't want to give away any of it, but just like go into it and watch it, and you'll love it, man. I would watch it again. I think I watched it twice now. I watched it the other night and then again, but it's very good, man. It deserved to win Best Picture.
Well,
this
I am
year.
definitely going to watch it. I know my wife has it on our
Yeah.
bucket list, so I'll be taking a look at it. And I've heard pretty much what you have shared. I've heard that description. I mean, even Academy, I think, described it that way during that show. So we'll take a look at it. The other thing, man, I saw something and it just left my mind. I saw something the other day that I wanted to share. Oh, the very first episode of The Man. What's it called? The Man Who Fell to Earth.
The Man Who Fell to Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. No, is it good?
Well, it's good enough for me to give it a couple of more episodes to see if I'll stick with it. It starts off, and I'm going to screw up the pronunciation of this actor's name, Chiwaldi. Let me see if I can look it up and still Chiwaldi. God damn it!
I just heard about it because I think it just came out. But
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Oh yeah, Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's excellent.
He really fucking is, and he's excellent in this movie. And it starts off. I won't give away too much, but it starts off with him doing
12
like this.
Years a Slave, right?
Yes, he was in that. He's been in some Marvel movies, I want to say. He's been all over the place. He's a British actor who has done a lot of Hollywood movies. So the TV series starts off with him giving this TED type talk to thousands of people, and these people are totally enamored with him, and he is clearly rich and famous and powerful. And he starts to talk about the special power that he has. And he says, the way I want to share this with you is from the beginning. And so it talks about how he came from space and he is now on planet Earth, and he is trying to save the planet that he has come from. And that planet, ironically, is facing some of the same problems that Earth is saving. So he recruits a new some really smart woman who is having her own challenges in her own life. He recruits her to try to help him solve some of these problems. That's all I'll say about it. And
nice. That sounds like something I would love.
Yeah, I think you would love it. My wife is a big sci-fi fan, so
me too.
I saw it and then I resaw it again with her, and she was like, "Yeah, we got to watch this." So we're committed to at least the next few episodes, and so hopefully you'll get a chance to see at least one episode before our next week's show.
Yeah. Do you know who Michael Mann is?
Oh yeah, the great director of Heat,
Miami Vice
TV show. Yes,
I started Tokyo Vice, and Michael Mann is the creator of Tokyo Vice.
That's right. I read that somewhere.
I didn't know. I walked into it and I'm like, this is great, man. It's really good, man. If you get a chance to watch that one, that one's also good. I could recommend. I think Stephen Nagishi is the one who was talking about it last week.
I think you're right. That's right.
Threw it in my queue, and I'm hooked on that one. I think I'm about 4 or 5 episodes in. And I love the main actor is the kid who played in a movie called Baby Driver by Edgar Wright, which if Barflies haven't seen Baby Driver, you have to see it, man. It's great. It's got a great soundtrack too. But the kid who starred in Baby Driver is the star of Tokyo Vice. So.
Excellent. I'm going to look for that.
We're going to do some NFL props though, right, Aldo?
Yes, we do.
I've got a shit ton of notes.
I got to say, first of all, that Tokyo Vice is just the title alone makes me want to watch it. You know, I was into the whole Hong Kong Asian cinema thing, these action films, and really love that era where movies from that part of the world really took off here in the United States many years ago. So I'm a big fan of that type of filmmaking. So if that's anything, if Tokyo Vice is anything like that, then I
love Japanese culture too, man. It's like it's very intense, the culture and stuff. It's so different. I've only passed through Tokyo just briefly, but I think next time I'm going to try and make like a little extended trip there. But love Japan and love the culture.
Yeah, and before you get to your props, Tin Pan mentions Mindhunters, another Michael Mann project, and I'll give you another one, Manhunter with William Peterson. Okay. It was the predecessor to The Silence of the Lambs. Michael Mann made the movie. It was based. Both of those movies were based on the Thomas Harris Red Dragon book. Michael Mann made the first adaptation of it, with Brian Cox playing the Hannibal Lecter role and William Peterson playing the
Detective Graham, Will Graham.
Exactly. And so I highly recommend that version of it. And Silence of the Lambs, of course, is a classic.
What was that guy's name that played the
Buffalo
killer?
Bill. Buffalo Bill.
Right. The actor who played us, he's like bald and tall and skinny.
He's fucking awesome.
I can't remember. It's like O'Connor or O'Connell.
He's been in a lot of things too.
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Silence. Let's see. Ted Levine.
No. In the Michael Mann film.
Oh,
the killer.
Oh, that's right. Jeez. Manhunter.
I can't remember his name.
Sing a song while I look this up.
It's like O'Connell or O'Donoghue or
Tom Noonan.
Tom Noonan, right? Tom Noonan, yeah.
Tom Noonan.
Irish last name, yep.
Yeah, good actor too. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, brother. It is time for.
Yeah.
If you saw our ad for tonight's show, Tucci's going to give us some prop bets. So take it away, brother.
Yeah. I've been waiting for the prop bets to come out on DraftKings here in Iowa, but Iowa doesn't allow wagering on college athletes, the individual college athletes. I was like, I'll be waiting for a long time until they change the law here in Iowa. But I do have some. I wish I could, man, because I got some killer. I think Illinois you can, Aldo, so you can look over some of these and stuff. And I think Barflies in the chat room will really enjoy some of these picks or some of these like props and stuff. I'll give you like some ones that I wrote down here. I think there's a prop out there. Kenny Pickett over 12.5 to be drafted later than 12.5. I think that's a pretty good bet.
That's a great one.
If you can get that one.
I'd study that one before laying a bet, but off the top of my head, I would say after. I think
I would say after too. Over 12.5. I think that's pretty good money. 6 wide receivers, over under 6 wide receivers in the NFL draft, first round of the NFL draft. That's going to be a little closer. You might sweat that one out, but think about it. You know,
off the top of my head, I would say over because
I would
they want that 5th-year option on wide receivers nowadays. Yep.
Like I talked about earlier.
Yes, you did. That's why I heard that.
Over 6.5 Big Ten players in the first round.
Ooh.
So you got Aiden Hutchinson, at least one there. You know, talking about what's that guy from Minnesota, Mafe. You got the 2 Ohio State wide receivers. That's 4 right there, man. Maybe God help me out here.
Well, I would say that this definitely feels like an over.
I think so. I think you're right there at like 6, 7.
Yeah, let me get to my big board here. Hold on a second, because
I'm trying to find it too. This is one I wrote down. You got Aiden Hutchinson, will probably be a top 5 pick. Garrett Wilson, Ohio State wide receiver. Let's see. The other one, Chris Olave.
Probably
will be a first round pick.
I might say under, because after you get past Chris Olave, I don't think
George Karlaftis, the edge rusher.
Yeah, I think he's a second rounder in my opinion, but maybe not.
You got Dax Hill, maybe
the receiver from safety from Michigan.
Safety, but maybe people might,
Now I'm starting to think with Jahan Dodson, possibly a first rounder. Ooh, man.
Yep. So you're getting there. Then there's Tyler Linderbaum, maybe sneak. I don't think so, but maybe sneaks into the end of the first round. Of Boye Mafe, the Minnesota edge rusher. I mean, it's an okay bet. It's not my favorite bet. One of my favorite one is Devontae Wyatt under 29.5. It means you'll think he'll get picked before the 30th pick. I think that's easy money. I think you'll see Devontae Wyatt in the top 15. That was one I wrote down here. No, man.
Get ready to fuck up the
over 16.5 offensive players in the first round. I think that's a pretty good bet too. So you're talking offensive linemen, wide receivers, maybe a quarterback or tight end. I don't know. Whether or not you think it's going to be all defense,
I might stay away from that one.
Another one. I think this one's easy money, man. No running backs in the first round.
Oof,
that's easy money.
Just
take the money.
I agree.
I don't think you got Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, and I don't think either of them will be in the first round. Kenneth Walker, maybe. I don't think Breece Hall is a first round pick.
I agree. And Poles was saying today that this draft is so deep with running backs that there's going to be good undrafted running backs available. Yeah. So, I agree with that.
Drake London, over under for Drake London draft positions 11.5. So I kind of lean under for Drake London with Washington at 11. They'll probably be looking for he's a big wide receiver that Carson Wentz usually has success with. Those larger ones. I see Jordan has joined us. What's up, Jordan?
Jordan would be a good guy to get his opinion on some of these. So Jordan, you just joined us. Tooch is taking us through some draft prop bets. And so listen to the next one. We'd love to get your opinion on what you think here.
Sam Howell over 42.5 draft position. I don't think Sam Howell will sneak into 42 or under. That's just me,
Frankly, I don't see Howell to me as a third round quarterback, but nowadays with how they draft quarterbacks, he might end up being in a first round. How the hell did I know? That's one I might stay away from.
Yeah. Another one is Sky Moore over 34.5. So him not to make it into the first round and to kind of, go down 2 or 3, 4 picks in the second round. I think that's a decent bet.
Yeah. I'll tell you, he's one of my fantasy picks that if he falls to the Bears in that second round, you got to think seriously but I understand the bet. It's a first rounder. I don't know if he's going to make it out of the first round. I think his stock lately has been going up and up and up. So I think he's a first rounder.
So I really like this player because, he's an Iowa kid. Tyler Linderbaum over 27.5. Which means he's got to be the early second round or very end of the first round. I think that might be a safe bet. I don't think anybody's going to take a center before 27 or higher. I don't know. My kid's pretty good. But
it's always been a no-no, right? To pick a center in the first round, and you could find a really good starting center caliber in the second, third round. But this guy, he has so much acclaim early in the draft process, but his name has been dropping in a lot of mocks. I see him not being a first rounder for some reason.
He's got short arms though, so maybe Jordan loves him. Just kidding, Jordan. This one, Jordan might know. Desmond Ridder to be a first round pick. So that's tough, man. You can see somebody sneaking back into the first round, 32, 31, and taking Desmond Ridder. I don't know. That's
somebody earlier in this show said that Ridder was their favorite quarterback. So he said that he'll definitely go in the first round. Jordan
says it will be a first round pick.
Take that bet in caps, says Jordan. So if Jordan says so, I'm going to take that bet.
Yeah.
I surrender.
Yep. Let's see. There's I wrote down another one here.
Ravi is telling while you're looking for that, Ravi is telling Jordan that Tooch talked earlier about liking Quandre Diggs and that Greg didn't like him.
On Twitter, I asked him what he thought of Quandre Diggs. I thought he'd be good for the Bears. I liked, his tape and stuff. The guy looked good on tape. Greg thought he was too short.
Yeah. Greg has something about he does not like short cornerbacks.
Right.
He has not been on Duke Shelley's bandwagon for a long time. Oh, Stephen Nagishi is back. What was the question we have for Stephen Nagishi about?
I think was it him that recommended Tokyo Vice?
Yeah, Stephen, did you recommend Tokyo Vice? Because Tooch did see it and he loved it. So
it's really good. It's got me hooked. I love the Ansel Elgort in the lead role as a Japanese is pretty good, man.
Oh,
I wish I knew how to speak Japanese. I think that's a fucking cool language.
Oh,
you know?
same here. And my daughter my daughter loves anime, and so she and I have always wanted to go to Japan and experience the culture there. So that's on the bucket list. Maybe we'll get to do that. The other thing that I was going to say, and I just lost it from my mind. But anyway, go ahead with your props.
Yeah, let's see. I think Titans to select an offensive lineman with their first round pick. I think that's one of the props I saw out there.
Okay.
Because they lost a couple guys, so they need a couple starters to make some holes for Derrick Henry. It's like that's their whole offense. Is Derrick Henry.
I'm totally with that. I think there's going to be in one of those props. Did you have how many offensive linemen are going in their first round? Okay, what was the number?
Let's see. I think it's 6.5 offensive linemen, all like wide receivers, the same.
Yeah,
number.
I think it's going to be right there, man. At 6.5 is a great number because I think it's
they're
going to be
so fucking sharp. Like Jordan said, the lines are sharp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Jordan also says it's a good bet, but the sneaky option is quarterback for Tennessee. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm staying away from that bet, offensive lineman or otherwise for Tennessee.
Right. Let's see. I like that over 6.5 Big Ten in the first round. My favorite's probably Devontae Wyatt under 29.5, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to go way before 29.5. Although Jordan would be happy if he fell to the Bears.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Jordan, I would love to have you on, but we're ready to pull the plug. I like to get out of here by around 11. Two Chad's work in the morning, and I got 3 or 4 shows to do tomorrow, so I need my beauty sleep.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So anyway, is that it for your prop bets?
Yeah. My favorite ones are Kenny Pickett over 12.5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he'll be under 13, drafted before 13.
Mm-hmm.
Over 6 wide receivers in the first round. And Devontae Wyatt under 29.5. And no running backs in the first round. Those are the 4 I really like, those bets.
Yeah, those sound like good ones. I wrote a couple of them down, but that Pickett one, it sounds like a pure money maker for me.
I might take a gamble on Trayvon Walker to be the number 1 overall pick, but I mean, Jacksonville, if they're smart, they'll take an offensive tackle, don't you think, to protect Trevor Lawrence? Because you've heard a lot of talk. I mean, a lot of talk about what's that? Ike Ekwonu,
right?
Being the number 1 overall pick.
I would not be surprised. Well, although I think Aiden Hutchinson is kind of that, tremendous edge rusher, but I think when you got a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, you need to think about him first and foremost. And I understand what Ryan Post said today, that a defensive player can help the quarterback because it's a chain reaction kind of thing. But no, you need that offensive lineman for your star quarterback. So I could see that.
I agree. And they might trade out of that pick too,
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Aiden Hutchinson, I know, like before when they first set these numbers out there, Aiden Hutchinson was like minus 200 to be the first overall pick, meaning that they thought he would be the first round pick.
Right.
Now he's like plus 180, and Trayvon Walker's like minus 180. You could have gotten Trayvon Walker to be the number 1 overall pick at like plus 350, a couple weeks back. And now that, it's draft smoke and mirrors and all the hype and the talk of the pro days and all that stuff, it's kind of reversed, and Trayvon Walker is the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 overall pick. Although, like I said, Ike Ekwonu, watch out for Jaguars taking him number 1 overall. I don't know. I'd like to know what Jordan would think who the actual number 1 overall pick is, because you can wager on draft position. Those are going to be very popular if you think a guy's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and they've all got different odds, So, I mean, obviously I can't. I tried to put some of these bets in today, like I said, but Iowa still hasn't straightened out the law as far as like collegiate players.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, and in fact, this really isn't about collegiate players in essence, because you're talking
They're
about
no longer collegiate players.
Exactly.
Once they declare for the draft, right? They're professional.
Exactly. I'm seeing if I get my I got my
Illinois allowed, right?
Trayvon Walker is minus 190 to be the first overall pick.
Like 2 weeks ago, he was like plus 350.
Yeah, wow.
So
that
he
is
could have gotten
amazing.
it there. But like I said, I love that Devontae Wyatt under 29.5. I think that's a good bet. Kenny Pickens over 12.5. I don't know what it is. They're moving all the time, you know. It's like, this is what I saw earlier today that I wrote down. But no running backs in the first round. I would take that bet.
All right, so here's a couple for you and Jordan. Anybody else in the chat room? Top 10 picks. Derek Stingley is minus 300. You think Derek Stingley, the cornerback out of LSU, is going to be a top 10 pick? I think that. He's certainly got the talent. There have been some, questions about his character and blah, blah, blah. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. I don't think you can overlook that. Not in today's NFL. Robbie says yes. Yeah, Jordan says 100% says Nomad. Waiting on Jordan. Drum roll, please. I got to get
Derek Stingley. The odds suggest yes, because you're not making any money on that.
Yeah.
You know, you could you'd have to parlay that with something to get some decent money out of it,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here are some more long shots. Kenny Pickett top 10? Nah, you can't go there. Plus 300. Traelin Burks plus 1,200. Absolutely not. That's not going to happen. He's not top 10. He may not even be first round. Some of these are just ridiculous.
If you think about it, I mean, the teams that are in actually are there really aren't a lot of teams that are realistically considering a quarterback, except maybe Atlanta, because they're going with Marcus Mariota. Is that right?
That is correct.
Projected starter right now.
That's the word I was looking for. Yes.
Right. They traded Matt Ryan. He's in Indianapolis. So I think Atlanta's picking what, 4th or 8th? 8th. I think they're picking 8th.
Yes.
So, I mean, like if Atlanta doesn't take a quarterback at 8, I think you're pretty safe with no quarterbacks in the top 10. So, but Jordan seems to think you might see a quarterback in the top 10. I don't know. We talked about that in the beginning of the show about how this might be the first year where there's no quarterbacks in the top 10.
Yeah, I gotta believe that there will be a quarterback in the top 10. Only not that they deserve it. Right. Mitchell Trubisky didn't deserve to be a first round pick.
Wouldn't it be Malik Wilson? Is that his name? Malik Williams?
Willis.
Malik Willis. Yeah, I mean that's the probably the quarterback with the highest ceiling, right? As long as he,
I think so.
Doesn't some of this, bust out like some of those guys that had like super high ceilings that never made it. Malik Willis at 8, like Steven says, is a possible. What's Malik Willis as a top 10 pick? What are the odds?
I will tell you in a second here. Top 10. Man, oh man.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much money I've lost recently. I'm like, I gotta stop the parlays. It's killing me.
I've been, I have clients that subscribe to my picks, and while I was giving out my card over like a week of picks, I was 32-2. 30 wins, 2 losses, 2 ties in NHL.
Really?
It was like unbelievable streak of winning hockey games. It was like it'll never happen again, folks.
Yeah, it's hard.
The other shoe was gonna drop, but for that time, man, I was like red hot. I could not lose. I was like Mike North in the fetal position. He always says when he first came to the bar room, he was like 17-1 or something like that, picking NFL games.
Oh man, it was a tremendous streak. You got written up in the Sun Times about it. Yeah. Malik Willis minus 105 to be a top 10 pick. Now here's an interesting one.
What was the odds again?
Minus 105.
So there's a lot of there's that would be the guy who would be there at 8. That's what you're betting against in that pick. You're betting Atlanta to take him at at 8.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just going for, you know, letting him learn behind Mariota and try and develop him and stuff for the future. You know, if you think those traits are going to translate, I don't know if Jordan is on board with Malik Willis. I think Desmond Ridder is his guy, no? Or
I think, is it Ridder? Oh, someone will move up to grab Willis or Pickett, says Jordan. Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, here's one that I like. At plus 200, Kyle Hamilton as a top 10 pick.
Ooh.
I gotta believe Kyle Hamilton is going to be a top 10 pick.
See, I don't know, because remember we talked about this earlier, you know, about how he ran a 4.74 at his pro day or something like that. And you know, and then someone in the chat room said he did that on purpose so he wouldn't get drafted to a crappy team. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Right?
I think money talks, and you don't want to go any lower than you really want to. But,
exactly. You know, yeah.
Yeah. So here's Jordan saying Kyle Hamilton won't go top 10, and it's stupid that he won't. Yeah, it's stupid because quarterbacks are overvalued. You're absolutely right. I agree with you, Jordan. All right, I think it is time to pull the plug on this episode of Aldo Bear the Soulz. Tooch, again, outstanding job. Tell people about your betting business, where they can contact you, where they can get these free picks, and anything we want to share about what you're doing here.
Yep. Follow me at Twitter at John Santucci VIP, where I give away a free pick every day. I had like a 4-day losing streak with my free picks.
Oh.
But tonight I had the Ottawa Senators on the money line that paid off. So that was another hockey bet to add to my another win in hockey. But hockey's like the sport I know the least about too. I just look at numbers and trends and, you know, crunch the numbers, run them through the spreadsheet. You know, I look at the just looking at the numbers and the line movement and stuff like that. That's how I kind of help make some.
Mike North made a lot of money last year on NHL games and doing basically the same thing you did. He would chart them out, and his system said, bet on this guy, and he won. I think it was like 65-75% of his NHL bets. Not bad.
Yeah. I give away. I'm. It's kind of hard now with my other stuff going on, you know, with work and stuff. So I just give out a weekend pass so people will get my picks Friday, Saturday, and Sunday right now until I can figure out how to incorporate the rest of the week or monthly or yearly subscription. I think that'll probably be later on. You know, it's hard right now. But and then hopefully you and I can come to some kind of schedule for Maximum Edge and bring Anthony, because you guys will love Anthony's a Bears fan.
Oh, I know.
He's a huge Bears fan, huge Cubs fan. Loves the Bears, those are his two favorite teams. And he's probably the best guy for like advice. You know, he's super sharp. You know, he'll get barflies on the right track, you know, as far as making smart picks and making smart wagers.
No,
but
my money pool is down on DraftKings. I'm down to pennies, so I need some help. I got to win it.
Yep, and
my luck will change soon as soon as we get you guys on board here.
Yep, and Barflies will have a lot of fun because Anthony and I get some really good guests, man. We get the office that we work with on Twitter. They get us the best guests, you know, from ESPN. To you know, Vegas Insider, guys from Wager Talk and all that stuff. So stay tuned. You guys will love some of the guests we get.
All right. Let people know that tomorrow, Wednesday, our programming starts at 2 p.m. Central. It is Bar Down Hockey Talk. But don't you worry. Those guys are going to have a lot to talk about regarding the draft as well. And then I'm going to be a guest on the Irish Bears show. I think around 4 p.m. Central. Maybe it's 3 p.m. Central. I'll be a guest there. At 7 p.m. Central, it's the Mac and Reed show. Ross Reed and Evan McLean are back. They will talk about the draft and the Bears. They'll also touch on what's going on with the Chicago Bulls and the rest of Chicago sports. And then a special episode of Draft on Tap tomorrow night at 8:30. That's our programming for Wednesday. And then on Thursday, tons of draft stuff on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the programming is filled with draft stuff as the week goes on. And so the best way to stay on top of what we're doing is go over to @Barroom Network or just subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you will get an alert. If you've got a Google account, you will get an alert that will tell you that you can see John Santucci live or Danny Shimon live or Greg Gabriel live and interact with us in the chat room. That's always fun. So anyway, for John Santucci, Dan Aguirre, and me, Aldo Gandia, we'll see you soon, and thanks for being with us today. Bye-bye, everybody.